Well, there's a
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Solution Podcast. It's the solution. Yes, yes. It's the solution, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for the truth. That's what we are here for. It's the Solution Podcast. Let's get to the solution. Let's work out these problems. Let's get to it. Let's tell them the truth. Let's stop the lies. Let's give them the evidence. The Solution Podcast. We got you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you stay tuned. I hope, comment. Hold on. Let me say that again. I hope you comment, like, and subscribe. We've got you. We're gonna tell you the truth. We're not gonna lie. And don't forget, ladies and gents, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Yes, you are part of the problem if you're not part of the solution. Welcome everyone to the Solution Podcast. I hope everyone is okay, is doing well. I have with me JM, Hassan, and me, of course. And today we're going to be talking about, is pro-black a racist ideology? I believe pro-black is a racist ideology. Brother JM says no, it isn't. So today we are going to be talking about this subject, this topic, this very important topic, because there's a lot of people out there that call themselves pro-blacks. Now, Brother Hassan here will be moderating. Hassan, what's going on, bro?
How you doing, man? How's everyone?
Good, bro. Energy, bro.
I got moderate energy.
All right, let's do this, man. Let's do this. Who out there thinks pro-black is a racist ideology? This should be very interesting. All right. You know, JM always comes ready. You know, you can't knock JM for that, man. Forever prepared, this brother. All right. Should I moderator? What's going on? Should I go first? Not go first? What's going on?
Yeah, I think you should go first because I think JM went first last time. Do you want me to put the clock on the screen? Is it going to be the same as usual? 7 minutes, 7 minutes?
Yeah, but we're not really going to time because it's going to be a debate / discussion. We're going to have opening statements, but then after that, it's just really, back and forth discussion.
How long is the opening statement?
Mine is about 5 minutes, if that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, Octavio, and then just go from there.
All right. Is pro-black a racist ideology? As far as my experience with people who call themselves pro-black goes, yes, it is a racist ideology. People who call themselves pro-black people are racists. They are vile. They are despicable human beings. Don't believe me? Go to a pro-black Facebook group and you'll see it for your own self. With the exception of JM, of course. He's not a racist. Okay, so not all pro-blacks are racist, but the majority definitely are. Why did I say as far as my experience with people who call themselves pro-black goes? I said that because that's all we have to go by when it comes to knowing what this term pro-black means. All we have to go by is our experiences with people that call themselves pro-blacks. Why? Because pro-black is not an ideology. Let me explain. There is no official manifesto. There is no official written declaration of intentions, motives, principles, beliefs, morals that can inform the public of what pro-black is and what it stands for. There is no set of tenets there is no set of tenets officially agreed upon to let us know what this term means so that we can decide whether it's a good ideology or a bad ideology. I mean, it's so bad that there is no official pro-black website. There isn't one. No official pro-black website that we can go to and find out what this ideology is all about. That's how crazy it is. Why is this a problem? This is a problem because if there is no official declaration to define what the term pro-black is, what it means, then JM's definition is just a 1 in a million. JM's definition is just as valid as any other definition, which means JM's definition is ultimately meaningless. What makes JM's definition any better than a racist pro-black who calls a racist who calls themselves pro-black? Exactly, nothing. This is why institutions like BLM can call themselves pro-black and no one challenges them. How does JM feel about BLM identifying themselves as pro-black? Does he agree? I bet he doesn't. If I know the brother, he definitely doesn't. After all, BLM is committed to fighting against anti-black racism for all black people. This includes the LGBTQ black community. Would it be fair to say that to be pro-black is to represent the LGBT plus community also, since gay black people also have experienced racism? This goes to black women who identify themselves as feminists also. JM is going to try and bamboozle us by claiming that the term pro-black has its roots in noble anti-black racist movements like the civil rights movements led by black icons such as Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Frederick Douglass, and others. What he won't tell you, though, is that none of these black icons, not one, ever uttered the words pro-black, let alone identify themselves as pro-black. Martin Luther King was a Christian, and Malcolm X was a Muslim. None of them called themselves pro-blacks. What does this mean? This means to these black icons, they were simply fighting against a immoral injustice. They were simply fighting against racism, and rightly so. But that's it, because anyone can be a victim of racism. I've been a victim of racism, both at the hands of white people and pro-black people. Should I now start a pro-light-skin movement? It's silly, isn't it? It's stupid. Should white people start calling themselves pro-white because they have examples of black people being racist to them? If white people attempted something like that, they would immediately be called racists. So why do I think pro-black is racist? Because morals, principles don't have a skin color. They don't. Okay? And because black people are capable of racism. Believe it or not, black people are capable of racism, people. All right. And because there is nothing in the pro-black manifesto, which doesn't exist, that says a pro-black person cannot be racist against another non-black race, against a person that is not of the black race. And also because I've experienced firsthand racism from people who call themselves pro-black. Okay, so that's my intro. Let's hear what JM has to say.
Whenever you're ready, Jam.
So I think Nelson has to do the screen thing again.
Yes, brother. Yes. Oh, I thought the debate was over.
Very interesting intro there from Nelson. And there's actually surprisingly a few things that I actually agree with him, but I'm going to address that hopefully through the course of the debate. But what I want to do first is kind of just I've got a little presentation here that will hopefully shed a bit of light on what it basically means to be pro-black or the pro-black movement, etc. Okay, so let's go to the first slide. I think this is really important for the process, for us to understand what exactly we're talking about here in terms of language. So pro, what does the word pro mean? Okay, so obviously that's a prefix, and it means for. So pro means for or on behalf of, and that's really important for people to understand because without an understanding of what the word means or what it represents, that's where it can get ambiguous. And for the purposes of the debate, I'm just going to show you why pro-black is for black people, why there's such a thing as a pro-black or a pro-black movement. But it's very important for you to understand that it's just what it simply means. It means for or behalf of black people. For example, you have, if you were to Google what being a pro-Catholic is, that it would come up with the definition of being pro-Catholic simply means supportive of and adhering to the teachings, practices of authority of the Catholic Church. So going back again, for Catholic, on behalf of. Another example, pro-Muslim. If you used to Google what that means, it would come up with supporting or favoring Muslims. So again, for or on behalf of. These are examples of where you can use the term pro in regards to anything, really. So in terms of pro-black, that essentially means supporting, advocating for, and prioritizing the well-being, rights, and interests of black people and black culture. It signifies a commitment to equality, respect, and a positive representation of black individuals and communities. What it does not mean is anti-white, and that's something that I'm going to kind of drum home today, that there's no correlation between someone that's for. There does not have to be a correlation between someone that's for or speaks on behalf of black people and being anti-white, and that's a very key part of the debate here and the message I'm bringing forward. So again, it's about supporting the advancement and empowering of black communities to focus on self-love, education, economic growth, and justice. It's not about superiority or hate towards others, okay? Now we have to look at the historical context of why such a movement exists. So it arose due to systemic oppression. So, for example, if you look at the little picture I've got there was a time in this country where you had such adverts being touted in public. If you desire colored, and sometimes this was changed to the N-word in some areas, for your neighbor, vote Labour. If you're already burdened with one, vote Tory. So again, if you look at his history, there's been open declarations of anti-black racism, and this is put out by a political party. So this is, again, systemic racism we're talking about. So this is the backdrop that birthed things like the pro-black movement. Because when you're faced with this level of open anti-black racism, at some point, some people within the community are going to have to fight against it, because the alternative is not worth thinking of. So this also leans into why the idea of there being some specific ideology or tenets, etc., doesn't really apply when it comes to this type of pro-black movement or black liberation, because it's a reaction to something. It's a reaction to oppression. So when you have a reaction to oppression, there's going to be a reaction. And that reaction may not be formulated. It may not have its roots in some organized ideology or sense of core beliefs that everyone adheres to, because it's a reaction to racism. It's a reaction to oppression. So we've got to look at a history of racism to understand again why we have such movements existed in the first place. So, for example, if you look at going back way back to the 15th century, we had this person here who was a Catholic friar. That's what he was, and he thought it was acceptable to actually try to use the falsified and fake curse of Ham doctrine, which suggests that black people are inherently cursed, to to basically support the idea of slavery and anti-black racism. He claimed that due to the curse imposed upon black people, they would inevitably remain permanently subjugated by Arabs and other Muslims. So he was talking about going way back to the Muslim slave trade, which we know existed by Muslims. this was actually supported biblically. I don't know if he suggested it was supported by the Muslim faith. I didn't get that, but clearly he referenced that to suggest that black people were justified in being subjugated. So this type of anti-black racism has a long history, and anything like that has a long history with regards to oppressing other people will result in a response from those people. There has to be a response. Again, if you go forward now to the civil rights era, which I think Nelson did mention that I was going to bring up, and of course I will bring it up, because it's key to understanding why we have such a thing as a pro-black movement. It's associated with the Black Power movement and the civil right with regards to the civil rights era. Its legacy is that it not only was about civil rights, it was about an overall identity that needed to be restored. A history of anti-black racism brings about certain legacies. It affects the psychological mind state of the people. It perpetuates stereotypes. And this is what the pro-black movement essentially does. It's an extension of, or it's a continuation of the civil rights movement. For example, in the UK, when the Windrush generation first came here, they experienced extreme racism and anti-black prejudice. So much so that in the area of Bristol, the actual Bristol bus company refused to hire black or Asian bus drivers, which then led to a 4-month boycott led by the West Indian Society to address that. And as you can see, the victory paved the way for the Race Relations Act in 1965. So again, this just highlights what happens when people stand up against prejudice and discrimination. And essentially, this is what being pro-black is about. I always say it's more about what you do than what you say. So that to me is a perfect example of what I call pro-black action, where the black community was specifically targeted in this instance, and through advocacy, a good result was achieved. In this instance, not only was it a good result for the black community, but every minority benefits from the Race Relations Act. Again, without pro-black people, without a pro-black movement, you would not have these types of outcomes. Why did it still exist? And what am I doing for time, Hassan? I don't know if I'm all right.
Yeah, just you're good. Just how long you got? 3 or more?
2-3 minutes left. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
So in terms of why does it still exist? It's because anti-black racism still exists. As long as there's injustice, you're always going to have a pro-black movement. If you want the pro-black movement to no longer exist, then there has to be no more anti-black racism. It's as simple as that. As we can see, even up to now, the criminal justice system has disparities. There's disparities that you can read there in terms of black men receiving federal, this is in the US obviously, 19.1% longer sentences than white men for the same crimes. In the UK, the odds of receiving a custodial sentence are 240% higher for ethnic minorities offenders compared to white offenders. Obviously, this doesn't just include black people here, charged with the same drug offense and equivalent criminal histories and propensities to plead guilty. So again, disparities still exist. There's still disparities along racial lines in this country. When it comes to stop and search, black people are 9 times more likely to be stopped. A lot of people argue, well, in the inner city, there's more crime, so that's why. Fair enough, if you want to use that as an argument, which I could also refute. However, how could people argue the fact that in communities with very low black populations, with hardly any crime happening in regards to those populations, black people are still more likely to be stopped and searched? So again, highlighting that there's still disparities and anti-black racism within society. And as I said, as long as that exists, you're always going to have a pro-black movement. Even in the health industry, as we can see, mortality rates for black women much higher. There's a noise I can hear. Someone needs to mute. 3 times higher than in the US and in the UK. So why is that? Why are black women more likely to die in childbirth? In 2 different countries, there has to be a correlation there, and that correlation is how black people are treated within the health system, and it's backed up by an actual survey that was done by the NHS, and was commented on by Professor Habib, or the chief executive of the NHS Race and Health Conservatory, said that we cannot have a 2-tier NHS based upon patient ethnicity, background, or circumstances. So again, highlighting that there's still disparities even within the health system. And then last, we're talking about the employment sector. And again, a report by the TUC, which is obviously what do you call it? Trade union, highlighted again that the alarmingly, the vast majority of many employees have experienced racist bullying, harassment, and worse. And this has come from the General Secretary highlighting that. So what I'm doing here, guys, I'm just kind of give you a reason why such a movement exists. Because as long as we have most areas of human activity touched by anti-black racism or discrimination, there will always be a response to it. There will always be people in that community that are, going back to what the word means, advocating for on behalf of black people. That's always going to be a case. And that's an honorable thing, by the way, to be doing that. Again, so let's look at the common misconceptions, some of which I think Nelson highlighted. This idea that it's anti-white. Reality is about justice, equality, and recognition. There's a myth that it means exclusion. In reality, it centers black voices, not silences others. Is it the same as pro-white? Nelson mentioned what would happen if white people was to use this phrase. But let's look at that. So again, as I've highlighted, being pro-black is more a symbol of striving through than anything else. However, pro-white sentiment and white power is a notion of Caucasian superiority and a repudiation of other races and ethnicities. So again, there's a difference there. If you look at the histories, a pro-black movement and a pro-white movement are completely different. And I'm going to highlight this further. So this is an article that came out about the white supremacist movement.
Is this the last section, JM?
Actually, you know what? I could stop here. Here, Hassan.
Yeah, because I think you've gone into detail pro black.
Yeah, I could stop here. So yeah, good shout.
Octavio, if you're still awake.
No, that was a great presentation as well. As usual, JM is great at these presentations. It's absolutely magnificent. But unfortunately, he's wrong. Hold on a second.
But I'm going to take that off the screen so we can people focus.
Just to acknowledge.
He's supposed to be impartial, by the way.
I am impartial.
Exactly.
Did I say anything?
Is Nelson still awake?
Yes, he didn't mute. He didn't mute himself. He didn't take himself off mute.
I'll let you off.
I knew you were gonna take that. It sounded offensive, but it's more like, "Hey, how come you're still on mute?"
Just wanted to acknowledge Negus Afro Danidor. Hopefully, I'm saying it right. As an Eritrean Dane born in Denmark, Copenhagen, I must say, pro-black is being the Lulu. I don't know what that means. Being pro-black means being highly religious and anti-LGBTQ, homophobic towards your own kind, but you want African dictators to be able to do business with white LGBTQ-friendly nations while you kill your own. Pro-black is worship of whiteness. They want proximity to whiteness. Wow, she's been going in. While they have the rights to kill their own without the betterment. Okay. I'm going to show you because it's quite a lot. She says quite a lot. All right, let's continue the debate. I'm going to show the rest of your comments, Negus. Don't worry about that.
Just for the for context, Negus, whatever the surname was, is a transgender man.
Oh, okay, okay.
Not a biological female.
Not a biological female, an
Yeah.
actual man. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. JM, can black people be racist?
So, sorry, before you guys carry on,
Yeah.
how are we going to do this? Because if it's a back and forth, is it going to be just a consistent? Are you going to shoot off questions, Octavio, and JM answers, and then vice versa?
But we can have a little bit of a dialogue. I still want to finish my presentation, but I'm happy. And then Nelson had some questions. I'm happy to just answer some of his questions.
Okay, cool.
I don't mind. I don't even have to answer it. I don't have to ask him any, to be honest. I think I'm happy just
to answer. Okay,
Yeah.
should we do? Should we set a timer for 30 minutes and then review after 30 minutes and still carry on?
3-0.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Maybe not that long. Maybe 15. Maybe.
All right, that's fine.
I feel like it may. I'd rather give a lot of more time than necessary.
Okay.
So I'm going to put 30 minutes on the clock, so you're not thinking of it. You guys aren't rushing your answers.
Okay. All right.
And then go ahead, Octavio.
JM, can black people be racist?
Yes, they can.
They can be racist. Okay. What website can I go to find out the tenets of this pro-black ideology? Where can I go to? Where's the official website that I can go to that I can learn all about what being pro-black is? Because you gave an extraordinary presentation. I applaud you for it. Now I would like to know, where can I go to learn what you've managed to present to me, to learn everything that you've managed to present to me? Is there an official website?
I'm sure there was one somewhere. I haven't come across it. But I think the point I was making in my presentation was, if you look at the reason why we have such a movement, and this is the point I wanted to make, the reasons why we have the movement are not rooted in some kind of organized group. If you have people of all walks of life, some Christians, some not atheists, could be a variety of different Catholic Christian denominations. It could be people that have, agnostic. If they're all under an oppressive society, let's use the term anti-black racism. If everyone in the community is affected by that, let's just use it as an example, and they come from a variety of different backgrounds, different belief systems, the idea that there be some common ideology that would link a series of tenets wouldn't really make sense. The only thing that would bind them is addressing the oppression. And in addressing the oppression, yes, there'll be some principles there. Some of the principles are the ones I've advocated for, and I presented in my presentation. It's going to be about addressing systemic racism as a group. How it's done can vary. There can be different ways of doing it, but the root principle would be to address it. It would also be about, okay, go on. Do you want me to continue, or do you want another question?
This is where I disagree with you, Jim. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because I've met pro-black people who are racist, who are more interested in being racially superior to other races than actually advocating for the things that you're advocating for. I would also argue that you don't need to call yourself pro-black in order to fight against racism. And since black people can also be racist, it makes no sense to me. Okay, it makes no sense to me for one reason, because if we don't know, if you can have your definition of what pro-black is, and another person can have another definition of what pro-black is. You said it's not about racial superiority. Well, I've met guys that to them it is about racial superiority. If we don't have an objective standard, how can you convince me that this pro-black group or movement, I can't even call it a movement, because I haven't found a website. I've been looking for this website and I haven't found any. What I've seen is different people talking about how this is what it means to me. I've seen those type of sites where different people are given different ideas or different definitions of what they think pro-black means to them. But this is what I'm saying. If there's no official standard, if there's no objective standard, no set of principles that's official about what a pro-black person is, and then I meet a person that's racist, and I meet someone like you, I meet a pro-black, a person that calls themselves pro-black, and they're all about black superiority, racially speaking, and I meet someone like JM who's all about fairness and equality for black people and fighting injustices. Which one am I going to go for?
So that's as I said, because you mentioned it in your opening statement, and it's a fair point. But I would ask you this: do you honestly think there's no difference between someone that you met two people, that one identified as pro-black and one that identified as pro-white? Which one of those people would you assume would have more of a racist, supremacist ideology in terms of other races, the pro-black or the pro-white?
I'll be honest with you, if we were talking about 60, 70 years ago, I'll probably say the pro-white would be more of a racist. But today, since laws have changed, a lot has changed, we can agree that the West or England is less racist today than it was before. Today, I would say I've seen another side. I've seen black people who are more interested in being racially superior to other races than. So, I would 60 years ago, 70 years ago, I would go with you, bro. I would say yes, pro-white, absolutely, without a doubt. If a white person came and called themselves pro-white, I would say yeah, that's definitely racist. But today, in today's society, I don't see that, bro.
Okay. Let's break down the racial superiority part. Because you mentioned you met black people that have a sense of racial superiority. Are you talking about what exactly have you seen? What have they said?
Yeah. Hold on. And this is my problem, and this is the problem that I'm gonna highlight. This is why, because I don't want to use my anecdotal examples, stuff that I've experienced, because just because I experienced something, it doesn't speak to the majority. And this is why I was desperately looking for this pro-black site that I can go to, so I don't have to judge. If, for example, if you meet a racist Catholic person, okay, you can't you can't say every single Catholic person is a racist. So how you going to go about deciding whether every Catholic is a racist or not? You're going to look at the tenets, you're going to see the principles, you're going to see what the religion teaches, and then you're going to decide whether they believe in racism or they don't believe in racism, right? It's the same thing. And this is why it's so hard for me to even talk anecdotally and say, oh, my experience. Yes, I have experience. Come on, bro. You know I have experience. I used to get thrown out of pro-black groups all the time before I joined community debate group. But the thing is, and I used to see what they talk about. It's usually just racial superiority. But the thing is, but again, that's my anecdotal experience. Maybe there was a pro-black group out there that wasn't all about that. But the thing is, that's why I went out of my way to look for this official site that defines what being a pro-black is, so that I can at least say, okay, yes, there's some racist pro-black there, but that's not what the ideology really stands for. Okay. And that's the problem. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, so let me tell you this. So if you have to approach most people, now let's just use the black community for example, and say, hey, this is what pro-black means. It means supporting, advocating for, and prioritizing the well-being, rights, and interests of black people and black culture. A commitment to respect, equality, and commitment. Sorry, it signifies a commitment to equality, respect, and a positive representation of black individuals and communities. If I was to present that as a definition of pro-black, or I was to say pro-black is about having a superiority complex and believing that you are more superior than the white people, which one would be taken? Which explanation would be taken seriously by most people?
That's the thing. When you're saying to speak,
no, but you can answer that. No, so which would be taken more seriously?
These days, I don't know, bro. I'll be honest.
I mean, I think most people hearing that would say, "Hey, the first." Do you know why I was? Do you know why Nelson would take it more seriously? I think this is the reason why I think it would be taken more seriously. Because if you believe that you're superior than a white person, in terms of, first of all, that doesn't benefit anyone. There's no actual there's nothing to you can point at and say, there, that's what you've done based on that belief. There's no tangible benefits of that for that ideology. It's just someone saying something. Oh, me being pro-black means I'm superior than white people. Okay, wow. Now what have we done based on that? With my definition of it, or with the definition that makes sense to most people in terms of advocating for, prioritizing, etc. I've read it, I'm going to read it again. There, you can see tangible results based on that. That's why I mentioned the Bristol boycott. And there's other examples I can give. If that definition, Nelson, results in tangible benefits and addresses real life issues. So that's why the definition makes sense. And that's why most people, if you said to them, this is what pro-black means, they will say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And if you show them tangible behavior, oh, this happened somewhere, this person was marginalized, let's go over there and advocate for them. Let's petition. Let's see if we can change the laws around that specific behavior. Let's challenge, for example, the police for their corruption and for, a disproportionate sentencing, etc. That is something you can. That my definition is the only definition, or the definition that I've given you, which I didn't make up, by the way, is the only one that makes sense in terms of the behavior. What you're talking about is someone saying that they have a superiority complex. That's not a movement. There's no movement behind that.
Does the pro-black movement fight against racism for non-blacks?
Sorry?
Do people who call themselves pro-black, because I can't call it pro-black movement or pro-black ideology because I haven't seen anything of that nature. Do people who call themselves pro-black, do they advocate, do they fight against racism for non-blacks?
Well, the answer is in the definition. If you, Nelson, if you're pro-black,
hold on, we got questions in the chat. Peace, family, peace.
Yeah, your priority is going to be, and if that is your priority, there's really no avenue to make massive efforts to tackle other forms of discrimination. Doesn't mean you won't be sensitive, because I know many people that are pro-black are sensitive, for example, to what's happening in Palestine, for example. When you see marches, you tend to see people that identify as pro-black in those marches, maybe understanding the oppression that other people face. So yeah, there will be a sensitivity there, but the word has a definition for me. I mean, it's black people are being marginalized. There's been, I highlighted reports by people within the power structure who've highlighted themselves that there's anti-black racism that needs to be dealt with.
Okay,
So
as a Christian, the point I was trying to make is, as a Christian,
yeah,
I believe in fighting injustice wherever I find it. If someone is being racist against white people, black people, Chinese people, it doesn't matter. If someone is being is trying to hurt a Muslim person just for being Muslim, we believe in fighting against injustice of any kind, whether racial, you name it, economic. We are told to fight against injustice. Now, when it comes to pro-black, I mean, the name, it's implied in the name that it's specifically targeted towards one race. Okay, it's about fighting injustice and to improve the lives of one race. I'm taking your definition here. Okay, yeah. So which means other injustices against other races, it's not necessarily a priority. Not saying that you won't necessarily go out of your to do it, but the priority is the black race, and that is where the focus is. Okay, to me, that's inherently racist. It's basically saying we are more important because I'm sure I don't have to even spell this out, but I'm sure everyone here is aware that injustices happens to everyone, right? to every single person and to every race. Okay, you go to the Philippines, go to what's going on right now in Gaza. There's all sorts of people going through a lot in the world. All right, all types of discrimination. For this ideology to only focus on one race in particular, as if it's the only race that's ever experienced anything negative or anything immoral, it's first of all, it's not reality, it's not a fact, it's not true, it's not historically accurate, because every race has endured some kind of racism, some kind of slavery, some kind of discrimination that has happened all throughout human existence. So for a person to even come up with a group to say pro-black, that means you're only focusing on your race. You're more important for whatever reason. And if we're going to go into the reasons, is I've had brothers saying that white people are apparently some kind of what is it that he said? They were albinos. There was some kind of like something genetically went wrong and it created an albino, and from that the group of white people came about, and so on and so forth, and that's how they basically came about, and they are jealous of black people. I've heard all types of explanations as to why black people are superior. So to focus purely just on pro-black, just the name itself is saying injustice only happens to us. We are going to focus more on us. And I'm just going to end on this. As a Christian, we don't believe that, because we believe in wherever there is injustice, we need to be fighting against it. Simple and plain.
Okay, so I think there's a couple of straw mans that you put in there. First of all, advocating or fighting on behalf of people does not mean that one believes there's more superior than anyone else. So it's nothing to do with feeling more superior than anyone else. What it's about, and the reason why it's focused, is because the oppression is focused. If the oppression wasn't focused and everybody was getting treated the same, as I said to you before, the pro-black movement wouldn't exist. But when there's specific, the curse of Ham, for example, that was put out there by evangelical Christians and affected people's perception of black people, that was specifically targeting black people. Some of the injustices that Americans face in the US were specific to black people. Some of the discrimination faced here is specific to black people, meaning black people at the highest levels are more disproportionately going to receive this level of discrimination. So it's not about not caring about other people. If you're being specifically targeted as a community or as a person more than anyone else, then it's only natural and only common sense for you to address that, because you're the one that's specifically affected. You're the one that is receives the anti-black discrimination. So if you're the one that's going to receive it, then obviously you're going to address it, and you're going to address it for the well-being of yourself and for your community. That's not racist to do that. That's common sense. Nobody would say to a pro-Palestinian, "Why are you concerned with what's happening in I don't know, Italy or something, or a press group somewhere else? Why are you not doing that?" Their answer would be, because we're the one that's being attacked. We're specifically being attacked, so we're going to address our own well-being. And that's the same thing. You can't look at black people as a part of this homogenous group that was affected by racism and everybody else. No, that's not how it was. That's not how it worked.
Okay.
We were specifically targeted, so our response is specific to our betterment. That's
I'm with you on that. I'm not against fighting against racism. I'm not against that. I think everyone should. Wherever there is racism, we need to fight against it. No one is against the fight of racism. But the fact is, racism exists, oppression exists, rape exists, evil exists. It has always existed. This is never going to stop. It's never going to stop. So when my criticism, when I said pro-black, is ultimately focused purely on just black people. Okay, because that's what the pro-black term is. It's basically just we are the priority. You keep saying that. What do you mean? It's not about the priority, though. That has to do with being a priority. I don't know where you use this. This is very weird language that you're using.
JM, just let him speak and then correct him in a second.
Yeah.
Okay. So, oppression has always existed. Racism has always existed. When you say I'm pro-black, it is about priority. I am the priority. I am the most special. I am all of those things. That's a fact. Because otherwise, you wouldn't need the term pro-black. You could just fight racism. I'll give you an example. MLK was a Christian. He wasn't a pro-black. He fought racism. Martin Luther King was a Christian. Malcolm X was a Muslim. They fought racism. Okay, they didn't need to say pro-black, because what do you mean by pro-black? What's this is an injustice. Racism is an injustice, just like any other type of racism, whether it's targeted towards a specific group or not. It doesn't make a difference. It is an injustice. That's it. We fight injustices. If there's racism, we fight against it. End of. When you come up with this term pro-black, when you come up with this, when you create this new term, because it is a new term, it's relatively new because MLK never used it. None of the civil rights leaders used it. You're basically saying that this is only specific to the black color, to black people. Their rights matter more than anyone else. Because if it's just about fighting injustice, you don't have to do that. You can just fight racism, and that's it. End of. For example, William Wilberforce. I think hopefully I'm not saying his name. William Wilberforce. He was a Christian. He was a politician. And he's one of the reasons why the slavery got abolished. So you've got white people who were Christians, who believed in the Christian ideology, and who were fighting against slavery and wanted to abolish slavery completely. Imagine if they called themselves pro-white. Imagine if their ideology was pro-white. They wouldn't care about pro-black, but because their ideology was Christianity, they said, you know what, even though we are not black, we are still going to go out there and we're still going to help, and we're still going to end the slavery, because according to our ideology, what's happening to those people is wrong. Is a pro-black person going to do the same for a white person who's victim of racism, or I don't know, any of a race? No, because the priority is pro-black, is black people. Am I correct?
Can I respond now?
Yep.
I want the same amount of time as well, Hassan.
No,
okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. So, first of all, would I assume that you would have the same issue with people who identify anti-Semitism then? By your same logic, people that claim anti-Semitism are wrong for doing so. What do? They specifically address what they would perceive as anti-Jewish racism. By your logic, they're wrong for doing that. Why are anti-Semitist people that claim the ADL or the Anti-Defamation League, why don't they advocate for black people who are discriminated against in the criminal justice system? I've never seen it. So by your logic, they're wrong too. I'm assuming you would say so, that they're wrong also. So, but you would not level, you wouldn't level that on them. You know why I know you wouldn't do it, Nelson? Because you've accused people of being anti-Semitic. So it's okay for you to accuse people of being anti-Semitic, which means that you take up the support for people that fight anti-Semitism. But you would never use the same argument, though. You never say, why are you so-called Jews only concerned about being Jewish? You would never use that argument. And I find that interesting. The point I'm making is that the reason why they exist is because they address what they perceive as specific discriminatory behavior that addresses them. That's why they target themselves, they label themselves as such. And that's why their priority is responding to attacks against themselves more than anyone else. The same applies. The reason why there's a pro-black movement is because, as I said before, addressing specific issues that address the black community is why the movement exists. Nothing to do with racism or hatred for other people. And the idea that they should be campaigning for other people it doesn't address the fact that they are fighting against things that specifically happen to them. When you have a situation where black women are more 3 or 4 times more likely to die in childbirth, okay, that's a specific statistic that affects black people. Okay, addressing that is pro-black, and there's nothing wrong with that because it aligns with the fact that this disproportionately affects black people. The same way that anti-Semitism does. Anti-Semitism addresses specific issues that address Jewish people, and no one has an issue with that. They get funding, people are okay with it, but because someone identifies as pro-black, now that's an issue. Now we're racist. Why don't we care about other people? Discrimination happens all over the world. That doesn't make sense. From even a logical point of view, it doesn't make sense. But it's also very hypocritical for you to say that, because you would never say the same thing about anti-Semitism.
All right. Let me say it for you then. I put anti-Semitism in the same boat as pro-black, because hatred is hatred, discrimination is discrimination, regardless. If someone is discriminating a person because they are Jew, if someone hates another person because they are Jew, they are wrong. End of. Do I like the term anti-Semitism? No, I don't, because what's being addressed here is the hatred. What's being addressed here is the racism. What's being addressed here is how do I say this? It's something that's immoral. It's immorality that's being addressed here. For example, if you attack a black person because of their race, that is wrong because that's racism. Okay, that's immoral. You shouldn't do that, and you shouldn't do that for things. So I don't like the slogan anti-Semitism. Just like I don't like. I think these are victimhood ideologies. These are ideologies created to keep people being victims all the time. Injustices. You're not the only one who faces this type of injustice. You're not the only one that faces racism. You're not even if it has happened more. Even if it has happened more to you than anyone else in a particular time and at a particular time in history, even if that's the case, okay. But just like you admitted, black people can be racist also. Okay, so who are they being racist? When they are racist, what are they being racist against? Any other race, right? Exactly. So what we should be? I don't like the term anti-Semitism, just like I don't like the term pro-black.
Is it racist?
But sorry.
Is it racist?
What do you mean, is it racist?
Is the term anti-Semitism racist? Are they racists?
Are they racist?
You said that pro-black are racist. For addressing black people only, they're racist for doing that. Are anti-Semitics, are people at the ADL racist for prioritizing the needs of Jewish people?
Yes. You shouldn't be prioritizing the needs of Jewish people.
But you've used the term anti-Semitism, though.
No. You shouldn't be prioritizing the needs of anyone, because all we are doing is fighting.
But you've accused people of being anti-Semitic.
Sorry?
You have accused people of being anti-Semitic.
Yes, we've done many things ignorantly, bro. But the thing is, when I started thinking about this pro-black debate, when I started thinking about this pro-black thing, I realized that there's a lot of things wrong with it. A lot of things wrong with it. And when you look at anti-Semitism, first of all, we're talking about pro-black. I don't know why you bring anti-Semitism, but when you look at anti-Semitism, okay, when you look at anti-Semitism, it's a victimhood ideology. It's a victimhood ideology. That's all it is.
So,
for example, where does it stop? Okay, I look at a Jew in a certain way. Oh, he's being anti-Semitic because he looked at me in a certain way. Where does it stop? Where's the okay? I'll tell you what. Where's the definition? Let me ask you a question. Anti-Semitism. Do they have an official website? Okay, because I've been asking for this, and I know you've already conceded that there isn't one. Okay, which means anyone can make it up. Can make up anti-Semitism. Anyone can make up racism. Anyone can make up anything they want to make up. All right. A racist person can be a pro-black person. Anyone can be a pro-black person, because there is nothing official to define what is a pro-black person, what is the pro-black movement. So do we have something similar to anti-Semitism? Do we have an official um, cite an official document, a declaration, some kind of manifesto that lays out exactly what anti-Semitism is, lays out what is anti-Semitism and how do we and what it stands for and what it's about and so on, so we can learn from it. Do we have one? Is there one in existence?
Well, Nelson, as I said, you've used the term, so you should be able to answer that question.
Exactly. No. Bro,
I'm going to keep bringing that up because you can't flip flop like that.
I'm asking you a question.
No,
If
but
the-
okay.
Hold on. Let me just finish my point because I'm trying to make a point here. Because if there isn't one, then it's up to people to decide. It's subjective, isn't it? It's up to people's feelings and how they feel, and their subjective feelings about what they think is anti-Semitic or isn't anti-Semitic. It's the same thing with the pro-black movement. Because there isn't one, anyone can say anything, or anyone can call anything racism. Anyone, because there is no objective standard. It's all subjective. It's all to do with people's feelings, because there is nothing for me to go up there and say, okay, so this is what the pro-black movement stands for. Oh, this is what it is. A racist can be a pro-black. How the hell am I supposed to know what you stand for when, honestly, there is nothing for me to judge by?
Okay, JM, if you want to say a few things, and then the 30 minutes is pretty much up now. Then you're going to put your presentation for pro-white or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a bit disingenuous when Nelson's coming across that suddenly he doesn't know what anti-Semitism means when he's been using the phrase to level it to other people. It means I mean, he should know, but I'll explain it. It means any behavior that is perceived to be discriminatory towards so-called Jewish people. That's what it means.
Yeah, that could be anything.
But it could be because a range of things. There's many things. People can be discriminatory in many different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's why we have laws. That's why there's laws exist, because there's some things that you can do that are protected by law. So, for example, if a black person is discriminated at work, that's protected by law. If it's happening and it's not being addressed, that's when advocacy happens. That's when people stand up and say, hold on a minute, you are not addressing this specific behavior happening to this specific group of people. That's why you have pro-black movements, because when the society or established government doesn't address systemic discrimination, the people will. The people of that specific community will. That's what's going to happen. So, as I keep saying, the movement is born out of necessity. It's not a whim. People didn't wake up and say, hey, let me just advocate for black people for no reason. Everything's fine, but let's just make up a reason. Let's just be victims for the sake of it. No, when you're actually, I've been a victim, when there's stats that highlight that you're being disproportionately discriminated against, when the dominant society themselves acknowledge the fact that this is happening, when they acknowledge the fact that, yes, we actually have got people within our ranks, whether it be the criminal justice system or the health system or the educational system, that are acting in a disproportionate way that's affecting a specific group of people, when that has been established, so you can't suggest whether it is or isn't happening, it's been established that it's happening, proof, statistics show that it's happening, then yes, obviously you're going to get people that are going within the society that's affected the most, that's going to advocate against it. That is human nature. That's what's going to happen.
Why does it need to be called pro-black?
To stigmatize a human behavior in terms of resistance against people that are stigmatizing them is crazy to me.
Okay,
and that's because of the preface that I mentioned at the beginning of the debate. What the word
have laws.
Let me just quickly mention this part. The prefix that I mentioned, for, advocate, on behalf of. That's what pro means.
Okay,
for
Jim.
On behalf of.
We have laws against racism, against discrimination of any kind, of any type in this country. We've got laws that protect people against racism and so on and so forth. We have that, right? So why do you still call yourself pro-black?
Because You literally just must have just ignored what I just said 5 minutes ago. The same countries that you're talking about that have these laws in place, the same people that impose those laws have told us, despite these laws, there still exists racism and discrimination, because the system is made up of people in power. So regardless of what the law is, if you have people in power acting in a discriminatory way, the end result is racism and discrimination. So the criminal justice system is supposed to be impartial. The criminal justice system is supposed to be impartial. There's laws in the books that say every person needs to be treated equally when it comes to the criminal justice system. However, their own criminal justice system has said, actually, when we looked at the practice of what's happening, practice-wise, we can see that when a black person is sentenced for the same crime as a white person, up to was it 240% more? I think it was for minorities, they're going to be given a harsher sentence. That's an example. Let me finish. That's an example of discriminatory practices, despite the law that says you cannot do this. This is discriminatory. The practice, because you're dealing with people who in a position of power, who hold anti-racist, who hold anti-black views of racism, enacting their racism and perpetuating it through their work, it leads to this type of behavior.
Yeah, JM, the fact that you even are aware of that is because there are laws in place that manage to actually carry out a research and find this out, right?
What's your point?
Yeah, my point is we have laws that protect us against racism. What you've just described. Let me finish, please.
Let him finish, and then can we go to the next section?
Yeah.
Which is JM's presentation or something.
What you've just described is an example of the law working. Okay, it's working against racism. We've already established that things like racism will always exist. We've already established that evil will always exist. There's never going to be a world, JM, where discrimination will be completely abolished. Where discrimination will completely stop as long as human beings exist, because human beings are flawed by nature. Okay, we have a sinful nature, put it that way. All right, so there's never going to be a utopia where the world, where everything is perfect and works perfectly. But what we do have is laws in this country, and the only reason why this research was carried out is because we have laws in this country that protects us against racism, and they were able to find out this level of discrimination within the system. Okay, that's how you came to that. That shows that the law is working. So I'm asking you again. Okay, so if we have a law that's obviously working, why are you still calling yourself pro-black?
I'm struggling here to understand what kind of logic is being used here. I'm actually slightly flabbergasted because
take your time, do your presentation, and then maybe
I'll bring it up again, but I have to address that because that really didn't make any sense. If you could bring it up quickly, and I'll quickly address it.
If you want me to explain it again, I will.
No, I got what you said. I'm going to show
I'm worried that we will go round in circles on this, and I'm pretty sure you got some decent presentations to.
Okay, just bring it up.
How long is the presentation going to go for, though?
Because 5 minutes, because it's not fair.
And I think somebody in the comments wants to come in or something. The question was, is it an open panel or open discussion or something?
I'm not going to go through the whole. For the sake of Nelson, I'm not thinking it's fair to just go through the whole presentation. He just listened to it, so we can bring it up. But I'm just going to point out one or two things from it, and then we can go back to discussion.
Hold on, before you go off, Jen, let me just address the Fiashes. Yeah, this was supposed to be a debate of Fiashes, and but I think we've been at it for 1 hour now, so I would say we will soon conclude it, and then just open the discussion, and then just go from there. Give it another 45 minutes of discussion, and then call it a day. What do you reckon, Jim? Does that work for you?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, all right, bro. Do your thing.
But I think we got to bring the slides up.
Yes. Sorry, I apologize.
But what I want to say quickly before I move on is the idea that a report highlighting discriminatory behavior is the law working doesn't make any sense. What it highlights is that the law isn't working. Not that it's working. If the law was working, the report wouldn't exist. So how you come to that conclusion is beyond belief, beggars belief, actually. The fact that the law isn't working is why the report exists. It's highlighting that the law is not protecting people within the criminal justice system, and they've been discriminated against because the law is not being applied. So it's not working.
I'm gonna address what you're.
Weird. I find that so weird. I have to explain that. But anyway,
I'm gonna address. I'm gonna because I would have to come back to that. But I'll let you do your thing, and then I'll come back to what you just said.
But so I want people to understand again this idea of there be some kind of similarity between saying that you're pro-black and then saying that you're pro-white, because Nelson also made that kind of comparison. So this is a study again about so-called white supremacist organizations, and the consistency that they had was a shared ideology about white power, the superiority of the white race, and the call for violence. That's what binded them together. And as I mentioned before, in terms of the actions and the outcome of such ideologies, if it was really what pro-black meant, how many times have we seen the after effects of white supremacist violence, school shootings, shooting up in synagogues, shooting of churches, terrorist acts? This is what you get when you have an ideology, or when you have a movement based on an actual ideology of racism. That's the after effects of it. You do not see that within people that identify as pro-black. You don't see people acting out and engaging in this type of targeted violence against other people. So again, this is another example to show that you cannot compare the two. The outcomes, the fruits of it are completely different. On the one side, you see advocacy for rights. You see people actually trying to make the world a better place for their community. And in terms of the Race Relations Act, which benefits every minority, actually making society a better place. On the other hand, you see people like these guys who their only fruits are violence and the killing of innocent people. If you look at some of the tenets of what they believe in, everything here, these are all right movements. If you read it, you can see that it's about, what is it about? The Nazis, very clearly what that's about. The elimination of the purported Jewish community, killing again. This was about concern about the replacing of dominant ethnic groups. So again, this, if you read through it, you can see that it's very specifically about either, as it says here on the white power skinheads, emphasis on warrior culture and physical violence, including street violence, assault, and more. Again, the white power movement is focused on this type of outcome. These are the fruits of white power movements. You do not see these fruits on pro-black movements. You don't see anyone openly talking about let's go and attack white people. They wouldn't be taken seriously in any pro-black space talking like that. This is what it's about. The original Black Lives Matter movement, before it got co-opted, was again just addressing something very specific, which was the anti-police violence and the killing of, which I've highlighted disproportionately, that people engage in negatively with the police and the outcomes. That's what it was about, the original movement. It's about supporting Black-owned businesses. It's about creating wealth within communities that have been disenfranchised. Obviously, it's about challenging racial bias and oppression, addressing and replacing negative attitudes and behaviors. Again, psychological attack. I spoke again about the curse of Ham. The idea that Black people are inherently inferior, that they look inferior. These are perpetuated through systems, educational systems, through the media. And again, this is what the pro-Black movement seeks to address. And also celebrating cultural events as well. But as I said, I'm not going to go on. I'm just going to highlight something because Nelson mentioned Christianity. The idea that somehow it's not compatible. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of Jane Elliott. She's a very well-known advocate when it comes to addressing anti-Black racism. And she says she's a practicing Christian. And this is one of the most respected anti-Black advocates you can think of. Anyone who understands the nature of discrimination will know who she is. She's very highly respected. She does lectures all over the world, etc. So this is a very knowledgeable person, and she happens to be white too. Okay, I'm a practicing Christian. Now, is Jane Elliott a pro-black? No, she's not pro-black, because to be pro-black, you have to come from the community. But the point I'm making, that anyone can address racism and discrimination, has nothing to do with your religious persuasion.
All right.
This is the final thoughts. It's not anti-anyone. It's pro-justice, pro-love, and pro-future. And more importantly, it's a call to action. But that's it.
Thank you for the presentation, Joe. Octavio.
Okay, let me just address that. Obviously, I disagree. I think pro-black is a vile movement. It's racist. And let me just address what Jan didn't understand my logic. No one is saying don't fight against racism. I don't have any issues. In fact, I advocate for fighting against racism. Racism is wrong. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be stopped. Okay, I'm talking about the pro-black movement, so-called. I can't even call it a movement because it doesn't even exist. It doesn't even have a website. We don't know what this pro-black movement stands for. No one knows. Anyone can come up with any definition for the so-called pro-black movement. And the people that came before were not pro-black. The people that were addressing racism and fighting against racism, people like Martin Luther King and all of that, they were not pro-black. Okay, what influenced them to fight against racism? It wasn't a pro-black mentality, so to speak. It was it was Christianity that got Martin Luther King to look at racism and say, this is wrong. It has to be stopped. To address, because Brother Jim said I wasn't really being clear, my logic wasn't clear. Okay, we've got in this country, okay, we have laws against racism, any discrimination, any type of discrimination, we've got laws against that. You're telling me a research was done where they managed to find out where racial discrimination was happening within the system, and you're telling me that the law is not working? How does that make any sense at all? If this was, if this was a racist country, if the powers that be were racist, why would they even carry out the research in the first place? The reason why they hold on a second.
That's a straw man argument.
Hold on, bro. Let me finish.
I never said that, Nelson. You put your words in my mouth.
I did not interrupt you, bro.
But you can't say things I didn't say, though.
I did not interrupt you, bro. Please let me finish. You can address it after.
Just be clear.
Okay. Sorry.
You know what I mean?
Sorry, Octavio. Just mention how he strawmanned you. Octavio, just adjust, if you wish, your point of view, and then try to avoid, I guess.
I'm going to speak. Jem's gonna because he's gonna think, oh, he's rebutting me. I don't like his rebuttal. So you're strawmanning my argument, and this is going to continue. Go on, Jem.
Well, if I've ever strawmanned you in this debate, you could say I've done it. I'd be happy for you to interrupt me. If I say something that you haven't said in an argument,
now my train of thought is going.
Yeah, feel free to
just address it, bro. Just address it, bro.
And I never said that this was such a racist country. I never said that. So that's a straw man argument straight away.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a straw man argument.
Okay.
That's quick. Okay, go on, Octavio.
My question to Jem was, why are you still a pro-black if this country has laws against racism? Okay. And then he cited the research that was done that the racist discrimination was basically discovered. Okay. And I'm thinking that's a good example of the law working. That's a good example of the laws that we have working. So why are you still pro-black? That was my question. If you already got laws in place and they are obviously working, because guess what? They're working so much that they even carried out a research and found out where discrimination exists within the system. Isn't that How is that not logical? So the question is, you should stop being pro-black. Okay. Remember, I don't even believe in this term pro-black because I don't even think pro-black exists. But you should stop calling yourself pro-black because guess what? This country does have laws and they do protect you against racism, so much so that they carried out research and they made sure, and in that research, they uncovered racial discrimination of all kinds within the system. That means the law is working. Why? What is the law there for? What is the law? What do we use the law for? It's for justice, right? That's what it's there for. And obviously, that's a good example of justice being done. If it uncovered discrimination, racial discrimination within the system, that's a good example of the law working. So my question is, if the laws are obviously working, if we've got laws against racism and so on and so forth to protect not just JM, not just black people, but anyone, why are you still calling yourself pro-black?
Okay, let me ask you a question. If you said that the laws are working, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If the law's working, why are black people more likely to be sentenced for longer periods of time in jail than the white defendants?
I can't speak to that, but is that what has been uncovered in the research?
Yes, and so
good, great.
If no. Ask the question. If the law's working, you said the law's working.
Okay.
If it's working, why does that statistic exist?
Fantastic. Now that the law is working because it managed to discover that black people are given a higher sentence for the same crime against other races. That's a good example of the law working. Because because the law has managed to discover that, which means now that has been discovered, that has been uncovered. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to change it.
Okay. I still am not getting through this way, so let me try another way.
Can I try just to keep things moving?
No, let me try one more time.
Get into final things so we can bring in.
Careful, I don't want you to seem to be.
Okay. Oh, okay. Your question is simple. I get your point.
But so I'll say it this way: what protects someone, a black person, from not receiving a sentence that's proportionate to his white counterpart? What protects him?
What protects them?
Yeah, what protects them so they don't get disproportionate sentences? What is in place to protect that from happening?
The law.
So if they are getting disproportionate sentences, what's happened?
What's happening is someone's breaking the law.
So the law has protected them, yeah?
No. No.
Right.
The law isn't protecting them.
Right. So the law isn't working. That's the whole point. If the law
is working,
that means the law isn't working.
Of the law working, it means someone is breaking the law. If you break the law,
the law isn't working.
No, someone.
Sorry, you guys are speaking over. Octavio, flesh out your point, and then JM.
It means all JM is giving me examples of is people breaking the law. Guess what? It happens everywhere. It happens all the time. Human beings are always going to break the law. They're always going to do what is wrong. They're always going to go against the law. But if we have a law that's in place and allows us to discover those people breaking the law, guess what? That's a good example of the law working. Thank God we've got that law. If we didn't have that law, guess what? Those people breaking the law would continue to break the law, and they will continue to succeed.
Okay.
JM?
The reason why you have people get disproportionate sentences is because the law is not being enacted. The law is in place to protect people. If it's not protecting people, then there's some practices within the people that are supposed to uphold the law that's not happening. So that's the whole point. Yes, there's laws to protect people, but if people are still being disproportionately negatively affected, and reports are highlighting that, it's evidence that the law is not being enacted properly. That's why, and let me finish. That's why you have movements that would address that disproportionate behavior, that disproportionate outcome. If the law was working and everybody was being judged by the same standard, the movements wouldn't exist. the report that highlights this disproportionate outcome wouldn't exist. The fact that you have reports that show that, hey, there's some disproportionate going on. The fact that you have people that say, hold on a second, why is this statistic exists? It's not about the law not working or not. It's the fact that people are not being upheld to the same standards. That's why you have movements. That's why you have advocacy groups. That's why you have independent people that come independent to then do a survey or to do some type of reporting on a particular organization. That's why these things are in. That's why they're set up in the first place, because people understand that the law will not always be upheld.
Okay, can I respond to that? And then after that, you can have the last word, and then we'll go into final thoughts, and then we'll bring in other people as well. Yeah. Okay. Mate, I don't know. I think I'm logically correct here. That's like saying because because we have laws, there's no one's ever going to steal anything ever again. That's it's like no one's ever going to break the law ever again. No one's ever no. We've got a law that protects us against thieves. So, but are people going to still steal? Yes. I only have one question. Are those people that are not following the law breaking the law?
What people?
Yeah. If someone is not following the law that tells you not to discriminate against another race, another person, and so on, are they following the law or breaking the law?
They're breaking the law.
They're breaking the law, exactly. And
what should happen to them?
And the reason why we know they're breaking the law is because we have a law that protects us against it, and that's what I'm saying.
To them? What do you think should happen to them?
Hold on, that they need to be held accountable. And
how do you do that? How do you do that?
Yeah, well, once they are the reason why you mentioned we got advocacy groups and so on and so forth.
Oh, you understand why we have them now, yeah?
The reason why these people exist is because we have laws that says that this is wrong. So right. Guess what ends up happening? Oh, hold on a second. The law says this, but I've noticed that this judge keeps doing this. Right. Let's say I'm someone just looking from the outside in, right? I was just like, hold on, this judge is not following the law.
Right.
Okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to grab a bunch of people and we're going to start an advocacy group and we're going to hold that judge accountable. But the only way that person came to that conclusion is because there was a law there that said doing this is wrong. And we've noticed.
At least now you understand why advocacy groups exist. And yeah? Now you understand why.
Sorry, Jay, let him finish.
But the thing is, but it's because the law exists. These advocacy groups were able to look at the law and hold that person accountable. But it's only because the law exists. If the law wasn't there in the first place, these advocacy groups wouldn't be making wouldn't say nothing. This is why if you go to certain other countries where they don't have these type of laws, okay, discrimination laws and so on. This is why those advocacy groups don't exist in those countries, because they know better. They know better than to start an advocacy group when there is no law to figure. So this is all I'm trying to say. And bro, you can have the last word, and then let's go into final thoughts, and then let everyone in whoever wants to. And shouts to Aaron McKay as well. I see Aaron McKay in the chat as well. Shouts to her as well.
Octavio, before you let everybody else in at the end, can I have a word just to make a few comments? Close off.
Yes, Jeremy, go ahead, bro.
I'm glad at the end you did acknowledge why advocacy groups exist. I'm glad you came to that conclusion yourself. And it was interesting how you came to that conclusion. You acknowledge that the law exists. You acknowledge that there will be people that are empowered that are not adhering to the law. Then I asked you, how would they be made accountable? And you had to admit that they will have to be made accountable by other people. So people have to be outside of the system or even in the system, highlighting it. That's what advocacy is. So when you keep asking me, why am I pro-black? You've answered your own question. That's my final word. You've answered your own question.
All right, Jen, give your final thoughts, then I'll give my final thoughts. Shall we say 2 minutes for final thoughts?
Give me a minute to put the timer up. 1 second.
2 or 3 minutes. 2 or 3 minutes.
I'll say 3 minutes. If you need two, you take two. Start. Who wants to go first?
Nah, I went first, so JM goes first.
Okay, JM. Whenever you're ready, 3 minutes.
Well, I had some set thoughts, but that last exchange was so interesting. That actually brought it nicely to a nice conclusion, because what happened, if you guys listen carefully, is Nelson advocated or highlighted why, interestingly, advocated and highlighted why pro-black movement exists. He very correctly highlighted that despite there being laws to protect people, they're not always protected. The people that are in power don't always abide by the law. That leads to disparity, that leads to discrimination. And you have to have, as he said, advocacy groups that will step in and do what? Hold people accountable. These are Nelson's words I'm using here. They need to hold people accountable. And essentially, that's what the pro-black movement does. It holds people accountable. Not only does it hold people accountable, it addresses the harm that happens to people who are being discriminated against. It seeks to address the damage that's done, whether that be like through education, through empowerment, through wealth development and wealth building. But the root of it will always be in addressing discriminatory practices and behaviors that adversely affect the black community. And that's what the root of it will always be. So is it a pro-white, is it an anti-white movement? Of course it isn't. If it was an anti-white movement, it would have the same fruits that anti-black movements like pro-white movements have. We see their fruits. We see what they stand for. They stand for the repudiation of other ethnic groups and races. They stand for violence. They stand for racism. And they act out on those principles. You don't see that in the pro-black movement. So the comparison is moot. So my final thought would be this. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And that essentially is what the pro-black movement is all about.
Still got 40 seconds, but I think you want to. You get done.
Yeah, you can give me those 40 seconds.
I'll give you 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
Yo, JM, you're absolutely right. If you don't stand for anything, you fall. If you don't stand for what was it? If you don't stand for enough for something, if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. And that's exactly, you've described the pro-black movement in a nutshell, because it doesn't stand for anything. Because it doesn't even have a manifesto. It doesn't even have a website, Jen. It doesn't have a concrete ideology. It doesn't have, I don't know what they stand for, which means it can be hijacked by racists, and it can be used by racists for anything. Okay. If there was a manifesto, if there was some kind of how do I say this? If there was some kind of doctrine, this is what we stand for, this is what we believe in, an official doctrine of what the pro-black movement is supposed to stand for, we would be having a completely different conversation. But because that doesn't even exist, it's basically just it's so subjective. It's Jem has this definition. I might meet another person that believes that he's superior to white people or any other race, and he calls himself pro-black, as I have. I met loads of racist pro-blacks, and because and that's what I'm saying. The pro-black movement stands for nothing, literally. Why is JM still a pro-black when we have laws against racism? Why? We never got an answer for that. We have laws. People, listen. We have laws against racism in this country. So much so that a research was carried out and founded and discovered a racial discrimination. So because we have laws against racism, and it's obviously working because we've just managed to do a research and discover this, then JM should say, no need to be a pro-black anymore. And by the way, I'm going by JM's definition of what pro-black is. All right, I'm taking JM's word that this is what pro-black means. JM should not be a pro-black anymore, because guess what? We've got laws against him. and the laws are working, because look at what they've just discovered. All this racial discrimination that's been going on. So JM should abandon his religion, his pro-black religion, and he should trust in the system that we have, because obviously we've got laws against it. And that's really, how long have I got?
25 seconds.
25 seconds. And that's really my point. That's why I call it a racist ideology, because it can be hijacked by racists, because it doesn't stand for anything. Not everyone is a JM. Not everyone's going to define thingy as JM defines it. And the fact that JM wants to continue to be a pro-black, even though there's laws to protect people against racism, to protect JM against racism, just goes to show that JM is more interested in black superiority than justice.
Your time is done. That was an excellent exchange / debate discussion and the topic being, is pro-black racist? Both of you had great presentations. Both of you made great arguments. Both of you had perspectives that we can all learn from. I appreciate JM for the detailed description of what pro-black means and the necessity for it. Appreciate Octavio for presenting counter arguments.
You should say that. I thought you wasn't going to say that. Yeah, go on.
No, of course. Octavio is making great points as well. There's just the reason I wanted to speak at the end is just to add my 2 cents, not necessarily in terms of the debate or the discussion, just more 2 things that you guys have said that I picked up on. JM said that the ADL has not been pro-black as far as he's aware. If you look online, and you can even look on their website, they have been a part of the black or the pro.
I didn't say that, Hassan.
Could you clarify what you said?
I said it wasn't their priority.
I think you specifically said they've never been pro-black.
No, I never said that. I said, well, pro-black would make it a priority, isn't it? That's what they can't be pro-black, because that would make it a priority.
Okay, so your point was being that they've then made black the priority. Yeah. How would you define a priority?
Well, pro-black is an example of someone prioritizing the needs and well-being of black people. Just like ADL prioritize the needs and well-being of Jewish people.
Could you give me a practical example of what they would have to do to prioritize black issues?
I gave an example of the disproportionate amount of black women that are being killed in childbirth.
Okay.
Highlighting that first of all, and then advocating on behalf of those black women would be another example. A third example would then be to petition or address the National Health Service for answers as to why that's happening, and demand some type of change, or some type of change of or either change of behavior, change of attitude, but some type of response to address it. That would be an example of it.
Okay, so putting their money where their mouth is, in a sense, actually going out of their way. Yeah, take action for exclusively black cause that's not necessarily associated with the Jewish community. That type of action is what you would define as them prioritizing a black issue. And you're stating they've never done that.
I'm not saying that they haven't done it. I'm saying that's not their general priority. Their priority, that's not what they were built for. Their priority, they can speak on any issue that affects other marginalized groups. I'm not saying they've never done that. But their priority as an organization, generally speaking, is the well-being of Jewish people and to fight anti-Semitism. I'm not saying that the idea that they've never spoken for other groups. I've mentioned before that people identified as pro-black, you'll see them on Palestinian marches. You'll see them speak for Palestinians. So yeah, it's the same kind of thing.
So you accept that the ADL has taken action to help champion pro-black objectives?
I don't know if they have, but if they have done, yeah, I wouldn't see that as any kind of.
And do you see how that matches Octavio's perspective, as a cause doesn't necessarily need to prioritize one particular race or racial ethnic group, that it can prioritize justice for the sake of justice? And
but but that's common sense. That's obvious. I don't. That's not a point. That's obvious. Obviously, that could happen, but it doesn't just take away from the fact that if a specific group is being marginalized,
Yeah.
if your specific group is being marginalized,
Yeah.
specifically,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you're being affected specifically from some type of behavior, whether it be a law or behavior,
or culture.
Then take up that fight.
Yeah.
Is your priority, because you're the one that's affected. If I'm the one that's going to be affected from a specific behavior, it's only common sense that I fight against that as a priority.
Okay, fair enough. In terms of the ADL, because I wanted to bring up this point, they have championed pro-black causes in the 1950s, the 1960s, whether it be marching in Selma, whether it be taking legal action to end segregation. So the ADL, just to make clear, although the Anti-Defamation League, which is specifically a anti-Semitism or a fight against anti-Semitism, has gone out of their way to support black causes. Just thought I'd mention that. I put it in the comment section at some point when I done the video.
I wouldn't see that as any kind of that wouldn't be surprising to me.
Okay, doesn't refute your point. Fair enough. Fair. Yeah. Octavio, you said, I think JM may remember, you said that there is no official definition, state definition of anti-Semitism, that it just comes under anti-racism.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
That I don't know if there is an official declaration of what anti-Semitism is, what they stand for, what their objectives are. You know, I don't know if it exists or not, but if it does exist, at least I can judge them based on, you know, their manifesto. But BLM doesn't have that. They don't have, you know, something official of that nature. So I can't, you know, do anything with BLM. I just have to take people's words for it.
Okay, so I think, from what I recall, you were making the point that the term anti-Semitism is a moot point, considering that there is racism defined, and the term anti-Semitism isn't necessary, and there would be no need to define it on a state level. I think that was the point that you were making.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The United States government has an official anti-Semitism definition, and it's had it since 2016.
Oh wow, I didn't actually know about that. Jen brought up the anti-Semitism thing. Yeah. I didn't research anti-Semitism.
Do you think that's fair that there's an official anti-Semitism statement from the U.S. State of Department, but there is no, or if there is no definition of anti-blackness on the official the U.S. Department of State website? Do you think that would be discrimination? Do you think that would be prioritizing a particular group over the other?
No. What do you mean the U.S. has? Because the thing is, if we're going to talk about having a declaration or manifesto or something of that nature, I want to know. I want to hear it from that specific group. You know, not the U.S., for example. You know, when you say the U.S., what do you mean? Is this
the state, the government?
State, the government. Are they Jew?
Well, they're representing Jews in the sense that they have a priority, or they've stated clear what to be anti-Semitic means, but they may not have an official statement of what being anti-black means, which goes back to your point of, well, we don't need pro-black because we have laws in place against racism, which includes everyone. But then the Jews, in this case, have their own special status in terms of defining what is anti-Semitism.
Yeah. That would be a special status in that case, then.
And you're against this?
Yes, I am. Because we already have laws against it. We already have laws against racism. We already have laws against. I'm against all of that. To me, that it doesn't make any sense.
So do you think? Sorry, 1 second, Jay. I just want to close off. So, do you think the same people that are fighting racism? So do you think the people who are making the laws defining anti-Semitism also, how can I say, they're being unfair in the sense that they're now adding an extra definition? Do you think an advocate and some sort of advocate group should be there to correct them and remind them that, hey, we already have laws in place that say what racism is? We don't need a separate definition for anti-Semitism.
Yes, unless anti-Semitism addresses more than just racism, because let's be clear. Let's be let's be specific about definitions here. Racism is the belief that your race is superior to another race. This is evil according to Christianity for a person to think that they is somehow superior to another race. So to me, it's like, yeah, that's what it is. But then again, if anti-Semitism is also covering, for example, you hate Jews because they dress code or they believe in the Torah or the Talmud or whatever. Is that what it's? Because I don't know, I don't know much about what anti-Semitism is supposed to signify or mean. But the thing is, if we already have laws in place, why do we need this special definition for anti-Semitism? Why do we need the special definition for pro-black?
Go ahead, JM.
No, before I just want to address that whole thing about the laws. So, so you highlighted the fact that the government has got a very specific definition for anti-Semitism, but they don't have it for anti-black racism.
I'm assuming they haven't. I haven't checked, but I just
thought there is
no Jewish. I just wanted to, because I knew there was a definition for anti-Semitism by the State Department.
Let's say that's the case.
I've got it on the screen, by the way.
Okay, let's say that's the case, and there wasn't one. What do you think would be the probable response by the black community if that was the case?
I don't know. I'm not part of the debate. I'm just asking questions.
Oh, okay. All right.
You can ask Octavio. I'll come in when the whole, put the.
That's fine. But I also wanted to just make a quick comment then about this idea that because you have laws in power, there's no need for advocacy groups. Something that I find it strange Nelson keeps saying, because less than about 5 minutes ago, he acknowledged the fact that if you have people in power that are not abiding by the law, then independent groups must check them. He said that himself. That's what advocacy is. So I don't know why he keeps saying it, but he actually advocated for the fact that advocacy groups must exist. So why he keeps saying that, I don't understand. But I want to be very specific with a question. So there was a time when schools were segregated in the US. Then a law was passed that made that illegal. Desegregating schools illegal on racial lines is illegal. The law was changed. When that law was changed, there was a famous incident of black students trying to join the school. There's a bit of noise that we need muting.
Hold on. Yeah.
Is it features?
The features, yes.
Yeah.
The
okay.
features,
Wait, just a bit of noise.
Welcome, brother. Welcome.
Welcome.
Peace, family. Peace. Thank you for having me on again, Octavio. I was actually planning to go live myself, right? But I was like scrambling for a topic, and then I saw you on here. You always have some really good topics. Your channel definitely deserves a lot more views. You know what I mean? So I said, let me just hop on here. If you would let me, you know what I mean? But I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate it.
You might actually be able to provide a little bit of light on this, actually.
Of course. Like Octavio knows my channel very. This is something that I specialize in, actually, and I'm very serious about it.
Let me continue. I'm going to lose my thought. But yeah, so the school that was desegregated, you had children that were trying to join the school. Remember, the law was already in place, Nelson. That means that they could attend that school. Do you know what it took to get those kids in that school? Are you aware of the incident?
No. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It took the police, it took a whole section of the black community to protect those children from entering the school. By your logic, they should have needed to be there. The law was in place, wasn't it? So why were they there? Why were they needed? But if they weren't there, those children wouldn't have been able to access that school safely. So this idea that because you have laws in place, there's no need for advocacy groups and there's no need for anyone to have to advocate on behalf of people. History shows us that doesn't make any sense. And that's a perfect example of that school of law being in place, but the need for an advocacy group, the need for the community, the need for pro-black groups who prioritize the needs and well-being of black people to exist, to allow the law to be fulfilled. That's why you'll always have pro-black groups.
Jay, I'm not saying that I don't understand where you're coming from. I'm saying these advocacy groups are direct. The reason why they even exist is because the law is there. Okay, which means the law is what creates these advocacy groups. They got nothing to do with these advocates. If there wasn't a law against racial discrimination, these advocacy groups wouldn't exist either. It's because we already have laws to protect us against that type of stuff. My issue with so the thing is, my issue is with the name pro-black, and maybe Fieshes can help us. You know, JM is an expert on this. So is the Fieshes.
Well, I'm an expert.
I always took JM as an expert, bro. Maybe Fieshes said this is my expertise. So I'm dying to hear from Fieshes. You tell me, bro. Let me hear it, because I don't like this pro-black movement. I don't think we need it. I don't even think it exists. This pro-black movement. I think it's just people that claim to be pro-black, but I don't actually think it exists as an institution, like BLM, for example. And that's another question I wanted to ask. Why can't BLM be pro-black? Do you think BLM should be pro-black, Jan?
For me personally, if their focus was just on the protecting the rights of anti-black against anti-black racism, yes, they would be. And that's why I said the original pro-black Black Lives Matter movement, I consider that to be pro-black, because it was advocating for a specific issue with regards to anti-black racism. The new pro-black movement, that Black Lives movement that came after, to me, was too amalgamated with LGBT rights and actually disfranchising a lot of straight black men from being involved in advocacy. So in terms of what I understand pro-black to mean, no, it's not a pro-black, because if you're disenfranchising a group of people, simply for them being a male of the male sex, that's not.
But gay black people need
any black person that is a victim of anti-black racism should get support, regardless of their sexuality.
Yeah. So BLM is pro-black.
They weren't, because they were disenfranchising other groups. This is what I'm saying. Okay. You can't also, at the same time, disenfranchising straight black men. That doesn't make sense.
Go ahead, Fieshes. Go ahead.
Bismillah, wa salatu wa salam, rasulullah wa ba'd. Right. So, to begin, I think the topic, even listening to the debate in itself, is a little bit cart before the horse, because the first thing we got to do is we got to define racism first, right? So what is racism? And the vast majority of people, especially in our times, they don't know what it is. They don't understand it. They don't know where it came from. They say basically what they think it is, or what is purported for it to be in terms of feelings or cognitive bias or things of this nature, right? And racism has nothing to do with any of that. Before the 1400s, there was no such thing called race or racism, right? There was no such thing called race or racism. This is a social construct that really began in the mid 1400s. And what was going on during this time is that Europe was in big trouble. Okay, they were basically, suffering from poverty, famine. They had all kinds of wars, all kind of stuff, right? And they started hearing about this gold that was going on in Africa, so they start making expeditions to Africa. And in the mid, I want to say, 1450? I think it's 1456, if I'm not mistaken. Right, 1456, 1455, somewhere around this time, 1450s. Right, there is a man. His name is Henry the Navigator, and he's an explorer. He explored for the Portuguese. They were the first ones to kind of go out there, and he brought back about 16 Africans that were gifted to him from Africa to Portugal. Okay, and the Pope at this time, the Pope's name at this time, his name was a man called Pope Innocent VIII. Again, I think I talked about this last time. Okay, and Pope Innocent.
Did you say Fieshes? You said gifted? You mean they were given as slaves?
Yeah, that is correct. Because slavery before before the devilish chattel slavery that came out of Europe, there was no such thing as race, as I mentioned before. At these times, there was nations, there were tribes, and there were religions. So slavery was an institution that is very, very, very old, right? Even long before this devilish European chattel slavery. But how you became a slave previously before that is either you were captured like a prisoner of war, or you indentured yourself into slavery, like you volunteered for slavery, or you were basically a some sort of criminal, and then you were put into slavery. This was what slavery was at before
which
this.
Country gave this Portuguese guy?
There were no countries back then. You're talking about the West African region, right? Right. So we're talking about this is like the Mali, the Kingdom of Mali. You can say at this time. You can say the region around Ghana. Nigeria, these type of regions. Okay,
so they had slaves, and they gave them some slaves.
Yes, because they had slavery was just a normal thing, right? So slavery in these times was just a typical normal thing. It wasn't seen as something that we see it today because of what happened in Europe. Right, so slaves had rights. Slaves could own things. Slaves could these type of things, right? So they gifted them about 16 black slaves. They went up to Europe, and then Pope Innocent, he was the first one that said, you know what, these black folk are, they're such a good idea. Let's just keep them. Let's turn black people into slaves, right? Because he could see very clear that, that these people are racially distinct from the Portuguese out there in Europe or whatnot, right? So he was the first one to kind of come up with the idea of enslaving black people just because of their black, right? Fast forward a few years, and then Christopher Columbus is making his expeditions to the Western world. And like I said, Europe is in turmoil, right? They're in big trouble, right? And Columbus, he discovers what he calls the New World. And he sees that these lands are very sparsely populated with indigenous population, right? Like they're not very heavily populated. And there's an opportunity here to bring the people from the Europe into these lands to basically cultivate the land and build land up and gather wealth, because they're looking for wealth. This is where around this time, between this time and what was going on in Spain, all of these things were happening around this time. The Spanish Inquisition was happening around this time. You had the pure blood laws in Spain and whatnot, essentially kicking out the Muslims and the Jews out of Europe. And at this time, the pure blood laws basically stated that if your paternal and maternal grandmother and paternal and maternal grandfathers were pure blood, like white, for lack of better words, and the Christian, then you would get the benefit of the rights, the status, and these type of things, right? During this time, right? So all this is kind of melding in together. So the word race was actually invented in Spain. A race meaning araza, right? Araza meaning to race for what? The race for wealth, resources, land, because this is what was happening at this time. And there were only at this time 7 or 8 countries that were involved in this race for wealth, resources, land, gold, all this kind of stuff. There was, of course, Portugal, as we mentioned. There was Spain, as we mentioned, Britain, France, Germany, the Dutch were involved, and the Italians, and there's one more that I can't remember, right? But these were the people that were going out for the race for wealth, gold, and all this kind of stuff, okay? And this race necessitated that they go into Africa, capture these free black folks, bring them into these new lands, use the black Africans as chattel. This is where the chattel slavery basically essentially started, right? And have them into perpetual slavery. And during the mid 1800s, when the race for the resources ended, all they did is they put a suffix at the end of race and said racism. So what is racism now? Racism is an affair between black people and white people, where white people control all the wealth, land, resources, and the human capital and labor of black people where black people own a nothing. That's what racism is. That's where we start seeing the first usage of the word race in that context. The context of the white race being superior over the black race. You cannot mention racism without mentioning white supremacy. And that's why I said the debate in itself is kind of cart before the horse, because being pro-black, you cannot be pro-black and racist. This is a kind of a contradiction of terms. Racism, as initially purported throughout history, has always been this affair between people who classified themselves as white over people who classified themselves as black. That's all it has ever been, and that's all it will be. You get it? Go ahead.
I'll be honest with you. Of course, I'm gonna have to fact check your history.
Yeah, no worries. Look it up.
I'm gonna have to fact check your history claims.
Of course.
Look deeper into the relationship between
no problem.
How the whole slave trade, because you mentioned them, Henry going.
By the way, that's the summarized version, because I know we don't have a lot of time, right? So go ahead.
Absolutely. And I'm actually glad you did that, because now it forces me to go out there and do more research and look into it and find out if that's really the case or not. Because as far as I understand it, and JM, you can
I'm just gonna quickly chime in.
Yeah, because the thing is, at first, as I understand it, at first it started off as trading. So the white men would go out there and they would trade, and black kings would give them slaves, and it was a trading relationship that soon devolved into, the white men thought, once they had the powder, once they had the gun, they thought, we could actually take over. Why don't we, turn this into a business type of thing? But it started off as so in a sense, slave exchange was already there. It was it had already existed during the trading stages before the white men decided to
slavery in itself is very, very, very old and ancient. Even it's mentioned even in the Bible itself, where you have the people of the children of Israel who are enslaved by Pharaoh. Okay, the word slave, it comes from the root word from Slav, from Slavania, right? Because those people in Europe, those Slavs, they were the labor class of Europe, and so that name, the actual etymology of the word slave comes from them. That's how old slavery was, right? So slavery is not something that is unusual or not unique. It's not unique in terms of Europeans over black people. What is unique is chattel slavery, saying that somebody does not have the right to own wealth, does not have the right to property, does not have the right even to their own autonomy of their own bodies and the bodies of their own children. They do not own their own children. This is the first time in history that has ever happened, was in chattel slavery, which came out of Europe, the transatlantic slave trade. And this is why, Octavio, that your name is Octavio, okay? This is why we are speaking English today, because our forefathers were taken out of Africa, sold as slaves without any autonomy over their bodies, over their religion, over their children, right? And because of that, we developed the attitudes that we were given by our slave masters. You get me? So to jump the gun and go directly towards pro-black racist and just hop, skip, and jump right over the white supremacists is definitely cart over before the horse. It is who are these pro-blacks that are running into Europe somewhere, kidnapping white women and children, all kind of stuff, and telling them that we are the superior race, and we are going to incrementally and systematically indoctrinate not just you but your children and your grandchildren to worship our lily white Jesus and all kinds of stuff. Who is doing this? Is this black folk? You know, it's not black folk doing this. Just the other day, you're out there in Europe, you had riots in Britain. What were the riots in Britain from? Was the black people rioting in Britain against other Muslims? Or is it the typical attitude of the white supremacists that are in Britain rioting, and not just rioting, but accusing the innocent Muslim community who had nothing to do with what were they rioting about, of committing crimes? What's happening in Ireland right now today? Why do you have so much far right sentiment all over Europe, all over these white Western countries? Why is it far right? All these far right movements coming into existence right now and being backed by rich colonial white supremacist money, apartheid money, slavery money, calling all of this sentiment is being backed by this money. Is it because of the black power movement? It's because of the Black Lives Matter? Whatever? No, we ain't got nothing to do with that. Right?
But this affected. So in terms of the debate, there was actually, I don't know how much of it you saw, but there was. I started off by kind of highlighting the fact as to why we have black liberation movements such as, there was. I think I even went back to the 15th century and I highlighted this particular Catholic friar, I think is what he is. Who was perpetuating the myth of the curse of Ham, which, as we know, was a justification for a lot of Christian superpowers and even within the Christian faith to justify slavery.
Direct from the top. It didn't just come out of nowhere. This came direct from the popes, the very, very upper echelon, the popes, the kings, you name it. They signed off on this. Right? There was no racial curse of Ham before the papacy brought it into existence.
Shouts to Catholicism.
Go ahead.
Let me just make my point. I'm going to let this point. I'm going to let you guys go because I'm going to get to bed to work. But just in terms of what the brother was saying as to why there's this far right movement in Europe, I don't know if you're aware of this great replacement theory, which is
sorry to cut you off there, brother Brett, but even Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, way back in the 70s, late 60s, early 60s, she wrote this in a book in writing. She wrote this. Right? She was talking about great replacing theory before great replacement theory was great replacement theory, right? She called it she said it was the fear of white genetic annihilation. And the way that she described it, she said the prevention of white genetic annihilation is pursued through all means, including chemical, biological, physical, and white genetic annihilation in of itself is the survival mechanism that white people use in order to keep the proper white supremacy, because they see themselves as their only way to survive is to make sure that they call the numbers of the other darker skinned people of the earth. Frances Cress Welsing was writing this in the 60s, 70s. She was giving interviews about this in the 80s, and now here they are openly talking about great replacement theory in 2025. Openly.
Go ahead. In that book you mentioned, the ISIS Papers is a very good book.
The ISIS Papers, I have that book right here in my house. I read the whole thing.
But there's a French author that he wrote that book, and that is the reason why the likes of Steve
Are you talking about Frantz Fanon? I have his book here too. I said, I'm not joking about
Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon.
That's the white guy here in the States.
Yeah, so he's also there's a lot of these guys pushing this idea of this great replacement theory. But just I just want to make this point that the reason why you have, again, the principles of the great replacement theory are racist and they go against the laws of Europe. Most countries in Europe have anti-discriminatory laws, yet we still have people advocating against the law. Just going back to this whole idea of the law and how you don't need to have anything apart from the law. If we didn't have advocacy groups or even other parts of law enforcement are monitoring this type of behavior, then you would have open anti-Muslim aggression throughout Europe. The law is not going to stop this. Going back to Octavio's point about the law is not going to stop Muslims being under attack in these countries. So that's why, just rounding it up, is why it's so important to have advocacy groups and people that will speak up on behalf of their communities. Because if you don't have that, the law is not enough to protect you. And on that, guys, I'm going to listen in, but I'm going to say goodnight, but I'm going to listen in. Octavio, we speak soon, bro.
Bro, love family, man. Love, brother. Appreciate it, man. You lost that one, but it's all right, brother.
Oh, whatever, man.
So I just wanted to...
brother, you know me. I'm not here necessarily to debate. I don't believe in debating so much. I think I said that last time as well, right? I'm just here to have a conversation with my people, right? Because I love my people, right? I have a lot of love for my people, right? And I have a lot of concern for my people, right? Which is one of the reasons why I'm pro-black. Pro-black is a spectrum. It's not something it's not a monolith, right? There are many people who call themselves pro-black, and they're the most destructive forces in the black community, all right? And but pro-black is not an old thing, right? It's not a new thing. It's a very old thing, rather. It goes even way back to Marcus Garvey times, who was the first person to turn the phrase Pan-African, right? So from that, that's where the pro-black movement really starts with Marcus Garvey, with even you could say Elijah Muhammad, these type of people, right? It's not a new thing, right?
I don't think it's this, bro. I don't think it. I think the term pro-black has been used to hijack black movements that fought against racism. I think this term pro-black, because, bro, I'll be honest with you, I need to know. Okay, you're telling me this is where it came from and blah blah blah. But the thing is, I've tried to do some research on it without people theorizing, without people adding their own little interpretations to history. We don't actually have a clear timeline of when this pro-black institution was created, when it became official. We don't have a manifesto. We don't have nothing. All we have, I'll be honest with you, bro, is people identifying themselves as pro-black.
Well, that's exactly what it is. Right? That is exactly what it is. People identify themselves as pro-black. And you go ahead.
Let me just get on. Hassan is we trying to say something for me.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to ask the features. Can you be pro-black and Muslim?
Yeah, of course. Are you kidding me? As a matter of fact, it's an obligation. Are you kidding me right now? Look at are you Muslim or Christian or Jewish, or what Muslim. Are you? You're Muslim? Okay.
You become a Christian soon.
Never.
Now, we hope not. Never. You actually, Octavio, you're more likely to become Muslim. And we pray that Allah guides you to Islam. I mean, alhamdulillah, right? I mean, I think you're a good-hearted guy. You know what I mean? But yeah, you seem like a nice guy. You don't seem like these other people out here who are just kind of seeking clout or whatever, right? But
I appreciate that, bro. I appreciate that. But so you can become Muslim and pro-black?
Yeah, of course. You kidding me?
A contradiction.
How is that a contradiction? When the Prophet sallallahu, right? Rather, Allah says in the Quran that we sent prophets and messengers to every nation. To every nation. Right? The Prophet sallallahu, right? There's an entire surah in the Quran. It's called Surah Quraysh, Li'ilafi Quraysh, for the protection of Quraysh. You think the Prophet sallallahu didn't love his people? Of course he loved his people. And even Allah mentions in the Quran that your love for your people will cause you grief and all this kind of stuff. Because he was concerned about them in the hellfire. And you're talking about prophets and messengers who knew the language of the people, who knew the culture of the people, right? Who understood the folkways and mores of the people. Here we are, black people, okay? We were robbed of our names, robbed of our language, robbed of our roots, robbed of our folkways, our moral ways. We lost our roots, our culture, our God. And some of us, by the way we act, we even lost our minds. And you mean to tell me I can't be pro my people? Rather, it's obligatory, right? When you are calling the people to Allah, or when you're calling the people to the truth, the first people you're going to call is your family first, your neighbors first, and then your general people.
This is the thing. I can imagine. Sorry, Octavio. I can imagine.
Sorry, Hassan. I disagree with you, the Fiestas, but go ahead, Hassan. I want to hear from.
I'm sure you're going to go into detail how much you disagree, but I can imagine a North African who has a similar story of how his people were somehow taken as slaves by the Muslims in the the 900s or the 1000s, because the Muslims were enslaving Europeans before the Europeans were enslaving the Africans. Not that it's Islamic, but it did happen. And I'm sure they would have said we've lost our traditional.
No, because they didn't. Roots. They didn't.
Well, they're Muslims. They were
yes. That was not chattel slavery. That was not chattel slavery.
Most likely they were Catholics.
That wasn't chattel. There was the slavery that we were talking about just a minute ago. All right. Yeah. It wasn't chattel slavery.
So is this the enslavement of the Muslim pirates from Italy and Spain and Portugal more preferable than the vice versa?
Are you talking about the Barbary slave trade?
Yes, yes.
The Barbary slave trade was a reaction to what was happening to Europe at that time.
Mm-hmm. The Muslim conquest of Europe and then the revolt.
Yes, that was a reaction and a natural reaction to what was going on in Europe at that time. And even still, that slavery cannot be remotely compared to the devil slavery that was coming out of Europe, where you were kidnapping free people, you are selling their babies right in front of their mothers, right? And you don't even give them any rights whatsoever. And even writing that into law, you put it into law. Do you know who Dred Scott is?
No.
Okay, Dred Scott is the reason why you have birthright citizenship to this day. Dred Scott was a free black slave in the U.S. And long story short, he was with his wife, and his wife was recaptured in a free state, recaptured and taken back into slavery. So he took his former slave master to the Supreme Court. And you know what the Supreme Court said? And they put this as a natural ruling to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said there are no rights that a black man has that a white man is bound to respect. And that ruling effectively made all non-white people, particularly black people, non-citizens. So after the Civil Rights War, how do we get these black people to become citizens again? You know how you do it? You make an amendment to the Constitution and say that anybody who is born naturally in the United States is a citizen. That's why you have birthright citizenship.
Right, but then again, it just still doesn't change the fact that there were Muslims. Sorry, Octavio. There were people of Islamic backgrounds, because I don't want to say they're Muslims, because not what Muslims did, because they were often selling slaves for gunpowder and rum and what have you. But there were free European people and taken to North Africa as slaves, men, women, and children. And
yes, and what we are saying is that, was this the natural disposition of Islam, or was it a reaction to what the conquistadors and the inquisitors were doing in Europe at that time, with pure blood laws and all kind of stuff?
I would say it's just the Muslim conquest, and then the corruption and the collapse of those Muslim empires as time goes on.
No, because the Muslim empires were in full swing back then.
Well, we were kicked out of Europe.
No, yes, exactly. Yes, that's what that was.
Can I just ask a question?
Right? It doesn't justify it, but to say that Islam didn't promote that. You had some Muslims who were doing that as a reaction to what's going on in Europe. Was it wrong? Absolutely, it was wrong. But where are these fatwa? Where are these Muslim scholars during that time, right? saying that, okay, you know what? Let's go kidnap these pasty white women and marry them and lighten our skin. Where were the scholars at this time? That was only happening in the Ottoman Empire, right? Yeah. And again, that was the slavery, the type of slavery that wasn't chattel slavery. You cannot compare that to chattel slavery at all. There is absolutely no comparison. Go ahead. Go ahead.
This Barbary slavery, which I'm very interested. Thanks for bringing it up. I'm going to look into it. Are you guys telling me that this slavery was better? That these what were these people treated with? What special rights did these people have that the chattel slavery did not provide? This is what I'm trying to, because you guys seem to be making a comparison about which slavery was better.
Okay, Octavio.
That's a mute point anyway.
I'm not making that comparison. I'm just trying to say slavery occurred, evil occurred in the past. The idea that a pro-black movement can now be associated with Islam, or it can be associated with Islam, I'm just arguing against that. There are people who do wrong.
Based on what problem? Based on what? Go ahead.
What is exclusively? I can't imagine Islam being pro-black. Allah did not make. Allah's not black. The idea that justice can be attributed to one particular people against another, or preferred over one over the other. It's justice for all. For men, Islam is a justice and mercy to all peoples, men, women, and children. The reward and the objective is Islam. Not racial equality, not anything else.
The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to aid your brother, whether he's the oppressor or he's the oppressed. Correct? Did the Prophet sallallahu he say this?
Yes.
And so, what is the natural question after hearing this a statement like this?
Okay, your Muslim brother, because
what is the natural question? After hearing a statement like this,
okay, or the question they asked is how we know how to help the oppressed. How do we help the oppressor?
And what was his answer?
By stopping him oppressing.
Where is your work against white supremacy?
Well, promoting the deen. Where's my work as an individual? Or
yes, where is it?
Speaking the truth, promoting Islam.
That's your work against white supremacy? Against white supremacy specifically, promoting the truth and speaking against Islam?
Isn't that enough?
No, that is absolutely not enough, because the Prophet, he himself, when he wanted to stop an evil, he stopped the exact specific evil in a very specific way. So now here you are, right? You want to say that Islam cannot be pro-black, right? Are you pro-Palestinian?
No,
you're not pro-Palestinian.
I don't care about Palestine. I'm pro-justice. I'm pro-stop.
You're not pro-Palestinian.
Can I respond, brother?
Go ahead.
I'm pro not killing innocent men and women and children. But
you see, this is such a stretch. This is such a stretch. This is beyond stretch. Go ahead.
I appreciate you listening, brother. Thank you for the question. I'm anti the oppression and the murder of innocent men and women and children in Gaza and in the West Bank because of the whole illegal settlements and such. But in terms of supporting a Palestinian state, I'm not Palestinian. I don't care about borders.
Right. This is first of all, that's a stretch. But let's say, for example, that you are actually not stretching. Okay.
I'm stretching.
Let's say, for example, this is
on here.
Well, I mean, this is so far fetched. Like, it's beyond far fetched what you just said right now. But okay, no problem. We're gonna take it at face value. Okay.
Ooh, I like this.
Right. Right. Let's say, for example, that you are actually not pro-Palestinian. Then what do you say about all of these pro-Palestinians, not just protesters, but politicians, activists, and they're saying they're pro-Palestinian? What do you say about that?
I would say do not follow the majority, but follow the truth, because the majority won't lead you to truth. You're
stretching, bro. You're stretching.
I know.
You're stretching. Yes. You know, you're stretching. I
haven't broken a limb.
Go ahead, Octavio. Go ahead.
I haven't broken a limb just yet.
Go ahead. That is so far-fetched. It's beyond far-fetched. But anyway, go ahead.
The reason I focus on that is because if I to quote your hadith, the believer is not stung by the same hole twice, meaning that we are capable of thinking and reflecting and coming to the precise conclusion of what the justice or what is good or what is precise or what produces the best results. What feels good isn't necessarily good. It feels good to march in the streets and say we are pro-Palestine and we're anti-Israel. But
I'm not for protest either, bro.
Sure.
I'm not somebody who supports protesting as a strategy, and I'm very open about that. You can check my videos about that on my channel. But I would be a curry chicken's butt, right? If I'm going to speak against the protesters before I speak against the Zionists. I'm going to be a curry chicken's butt before I say I'm pro everything before I say pro Palestine. Yes, I'm pro Palestine. Yes, I'm pro black, and yes, I'm anti injustice at the same time. Every problem has a specific solution. If your house is on fire, you don't say, "Well, I'm anti against fire to put out the fire."
No. I would go back to the hadith that says tie your camel, make dua and tie your camel, right? Meaning
that's not specific. But that's not specific. How do you fix the Palestinian problem without dealing with Palestinian issues? How do you do that?
I wouldn't focus on
the national stutter. Borders. It's okay. Stutter. Go ahead.
That's not right. That's not right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Stop it. Go ahead.
Well, the first thing I would say is do not go on a military offensive against the United States' greatest child or their chosen child, right? October 7th is a clear violation and beyond stupidity and look what it's achieved. Nothing. Take the best possible option. It seems like moving to Egypt or Jordan or Libya may be the best.
I'll be right back, guys. I'll be right back. Continue. I'm loving
it. The idea of I'm willing to die, not necessarily even fight for these national borders, is what's leading them down the path. But we're splitting hairs at this point. I think the idea that being pro-Muslim is an innovation. I see it as somebody looking at their faith and seeing it as being somewhat deficient in some way or the other. I don't think the Prophet Muhammad was pro-black. He wasn't a racist. He was pro-justice. It just so happens there was a lot of racism at his time where with the Arab Bedouins and whatever Jahiliyyah that they had, which happens that you'd have to mention a verse, no Arab is superior to an Arab, no non-Arab is superior to an Arab, and trying to establish justice. But his focus was the deen, and the deen is shifa for all issues.
What you just described wasn't the deen, nor was it shifa for anything.
Okay.
Right? You took the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallam, and you actually used it in a manner to keep the oppressed people oppressed. This is not what the Prophet ﷺ meant, this general kumbaya type of thing. When the Prophet ﷺ meant which you called racism, which wasn't racism actually, it was prejudice and colorism. Racism is something that started in the 14th century. So you can imagine how he would have hated racism, because it's many times worse. But I digress, right? When the only times the Prophet ﷺ was ever harsh or showed any type of harshness was in the situations where it was racism. That's it. If you look at the hadith of Bilal and Abu Dhar, he was harsh then. Okay, when you look at whatchamacallit, there's another situation I can't remember, but every single time that came up, and if you look at this hadith that's in Bukhari, it's in Adab al-Mufrad, where the Prophet says something, he's describing how to treat the racist. And he says, if you see anybody displaying the actions of the times of Jahiliyyah, then tell them to bite on their father's penis and do not give it a kunya, meaning don't sugarcoat it. He's telling you to be harsh against the racist. You're telling us to be nice with them. So who is following which sunnah here? The Prophet only showed harshness when it came to racism. He advised to show harshness to say that. And when he was saying in his last khutbah, right, there's no superiority over the white, over the black, or the Arab, or the non-Arab. How are you going to use this very same hadith and try and use it against somebody who's trying to tell the people who's displaying the superiority that they shouldn't be superior. But when he's trying to do that job, you're trying to use it as a handcuff to prevent them from doing it. And while meanwhile was saying that I would do this to stop injustice, I would do that to stop injustice. No, you're not. You're living in la la land, right? With the Prophet ﷺ, he was really about stopping justice. Yes. When he saw injustice, he didn't just talk about it. He went with his hand and he ended it. And so much so that there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said that there are 3 levels of iman. The first is to change a harm with his hands. The second is change a harm with his heart. The third is to change it with his mouth. The third is to hate us to his heart. And the hating of in his heart is the least of iman. You won't even want to change it with your hand. You don't even want to do that. You don't even want to speak against it. Or nor do you want us to speak against it. When we say we are pro-black, you take it as some sort of racist thing. We have to be pro-black because the same laws that are used to keep the white supremacists up keep us down. So instead of siding with the oppressed, you're out here making the arguments for the oppressor, on top of that, calling it Islamic. Go ahead, just talking. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you've detailed your argument passionately. Well, you expressed your argument passionately. But what is it that I said that says don't speak out?
Didn't I ask you specifically, right?
Yeah.
Right. The Prophet ﷺ, did he not say whatchamacallit, the ayah in the Quran? The very first thing I said was in the Quran itself, it says Li ilafi Quraysh. And then you said, I don't think that the Prophet ﷺ was pro-black. I don't think he was I think he was against racism, but I don't think he was pro anything. He was just speaking about injustice. And I said that he specifically dealt with injustices. Right. And then you took it. No, you said, no, you're giving this general hadith. Yeah. Right. So if you're giving a general answer for a specific problem.
Yeah.
Right. How does that solve your problem? You don't do this in anything in life. Rather, okay, so that's passing the buck.
So in terms of being very precise in trying to resolve an issue, that's fine. That's fine, but the tool should be Islam. The tool should be
absolutely. And we are using these Islamic tools, right, to make sure that our people, right, get our just desserts, and it doesn't make a difference what anybody else thinks. You're talking about 500 solid years of anti-black indoctrination, anti-black laws. Look what's going on in South Africa today. Look what's going on in the U.S. today, where people are getting snatched up, families separated. Is it the pro-blacks doing this?
Well, the pro-blacks are literally singing "Kill the Boer." Kill
and they should kill the Boer, but the kill the Boer is an anti-apartheid song.
Oh, and it's not racist to say kill white people?
Kill the Boer is racist? Kill the Boer is racist.
Yeah. Kill the
Boer disenfranchised some white South African somewhere. It took their money, it took their land, it took their wives. That's what Kill the Boer did?
And took their country, yeah.
Kill the Boer took their country. South Africa is the white man's country.
It's called South Africa. The white
South Africa is the white Dutch Boers' country. You can't make this stuff up. I just finished saying that you're making arguments for the white supremacists, and you just concluded by making an argument for an actual white supremacist while calling yourself Islamic. What the heck? What is this?
Yes, I'm not saying it belongs to them. I'm saying I agree that they've oppressed the people of the people of that region. I'm not saying that it belongs to them because they came in, they murdered innocent men, women, and children, and established apartheid. I'm not saying that. The point I'm making is that's evil. So is calling for their death on stage and saying kill the white man.
No, it's not.
So you get my point. Evil? I'm not supporting apartheid, just to make sure.
How is that evil? If somebody comes into your house, right, and steals your children, and molests your wife, and then you get your kitchen knife and stab him 70 times. Are you unjust in doing that?
Kill them to the point where I can stop them doing what they're doing. That's self-defensive. Even if I die in the pursuit.
So what are we talking about here? You're talking about 7% of a foreign invader that own 90% of the wealth, 80% of the land, while the 80% of the black populations owns 4% of the land. And you mean to tell me that singing "Kill the Boer" and anti-apartheid song, that's the racism? You must be joking. Like we are living on two different planets. Absolutely two different planets.
Well, let's build a space bridge so we can put our two planets together, close together.
There is no planet I want to be where people are making arguments in favor of the oppressor. There's no planet I want to be. The only argument that you should be making is, yes, the oppressor should be stopped. Yes, the Boer who is stealing the land, they should actually be killed. Right? Listen to gangster rap for about a week. That's actual genocide.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's actual genocide.
What was genocide? The rap song?
Gangster rap and drill rap.
Oh yeah,
where black children are being manipulated into killing each other.
Yeah.
That's actual genocide. You mean to tell me "Kill the Boers," a song that no Boers actually got killed from? All right, that's racism. You're tripping. Go ahead.
Okay, so I in terms of the drill music and modern rap music and whatever, it is a tool. It is a weapon to poison the youth and to promote self-genocide. And abortions and liberalism and what have you, there to diminish the integrity of the black community. And I agree with you there. But what I'm saying is I'm stopping the oppressed being the oppressor, or the because because we sang "Kill the Boers," so that's how you stop the oppressor, by telling us to stop killing.
Hold on.
What? Go ahead.
Yes, are you coming from an Islamic perspective?
Yeah, this is Islamic.
Hold on.
This is Islamic.
Because of course I don't agree with "Kill the Boers."
I'm not talking about the song. I'm talking about fighting against oppression in a direct manner, right?
No. Basically, what's happening is they actually go in there and try and they plan. That's the plan, is to kill them. What I'm asking is it Islamic to go out for South African, a black South African, to go out of his way and go to one of these guys, these white people's houses, the farms, and then slaughter the entire family? Is it Islamic?
Not a single white farmer has been slaughtered to get the black people access to their actual farm.
I don't think
millions of black South Africans were slaughtered and killed for their land, not just their land, their human resources.
Yeah, so that's not what I asked.
Yeah, I know what you asked. But you asked a hypothetical situation that never happened. Okay, if black people decided to fight their oppressor in South Africa, then that is Islamic. If black people decided in South Africa, they said, you know what, these people are stolen our land, we are taking our land back. That is Islamic.
So you're saying, right? If a South African group of black people decided tomorrow to go and kill these white guys in their farms, okay, you would say that's Islamic.
As individuals, you can't do something like that, because that will be that's not a strategy anyways. But let's say, for example, there was a leader back type of revolution, and that's what they do. What's the problem? What is really the problem? I'm asking you now. What's the problem?
That's genocide.
How is that genocide? Killing innocent. So right now we see an actual genocide happening in Palestine, right? How many of y'all shed a tear or batted an eye when Israel was bombarded by Iran?
Oh, did I shed? Say that again.
How many of you shed a tear or batted an eye when Israel was bombarded by Iran?
Well, Israel fired the rockets at Iran, so it's just
now you see the justice. I see. You see what I'm saying? Response. When it comes to black people, it's always this massive, incredible double standard. Every single time.
I don't see
You have
But
not. You,
sorry,
you
Octavio,
literally
Octavio,
didn't say. You didn't say anything. Not a single thing
Octavio,
about the black
once-
people getting their land stolen in South Africa. You're right straight to the innocent lily white boar who got rich and very wealthy off an apartheid system, mind you, and is living comfortably off of stolen land. But hypothetically, if these black South Africans went and killed them for the land, what does Islam say about that? That's where you went straight to.
Well,
You're tripping. You're tripping.
You're insinuating.
No, because you kept saying
You're
Octavio,
tripping.
Octavio,
I'm not tripping. You're tripping.
Octavio, 1 second, if you don't mind. You're insinuating I'm racist with that Iranian example, that I think it's justified for Iran to fire rockets back at Israel because you said you I don't think it's a double standard. You said I don't have sympathy for the black plight, but I would have sympathy for the Iranian plight in firing rockets back at Israel. Am I correct in understanding that way?
You tell me, am I correct in understanding that? That's exactly how I understand it.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
That's exactly how I understand it, right? Are you telling me, am I incorrect in understanding the way that I understood it?
Yeah.
That you had sympathy for the Iranian retaliation, but you have zero sympathy if for the imaginary, hypothetical, non-existent black retaliation in South Africa?
Yeah. I think this is the problem with being pro-black and Muslim. You are incapable of seeing your own racism. It seems like that.
I'm racist. Okay, no problem. Explain my racism.
Not you. But in terms of your language that you're saying is far closer to being racist than anything that I've said.
No problem. How is that racist? How?
Okay, so if a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white lily, as you said, family in somewhere outside of Johannesburg is on their farm, who may have ancestors that have acquired that land through apartheid. The apartheid regime ended. There is peace established. There is no aggression. Any issues that may be in terms of inappropriately acquired wealth still being the case in the nation, that needs to be resolved in a civil matter through the courts and the legal process. You think it's fine for a militia to go and execute them, and it's justified. How would that not be racist?
You know, the people who don't understand the history of a place, right, should learn the history of that place first before they say anything. Right? When did apartheid end? When did apartheid end?
1991.
1994.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Who was the president after the apartheid regime was dismantled?
Would it be Nelson Mandela? I'm guessing.
It was Nelson Mandela, right? What party was he in?
The ANC, I think.
ANC, okay.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, the ANC was the ruling party, right?
Okay.
For 33 decades, the ANC was the ruling party.
Mm-hmm.
And what economic gains did the black population make between 1994 to 2024?
I'm not too sure.
Zero. And you mean to tell me the people who are writing the laws are somehow going to write laws in favor of people who they are exploiting? When does this ever happen in history? Like, what are you talking about? Power only respects power. It wasn't until the Prophet ﷺ arrived in Mecca with a massive army that the Meccans said, you know what, we submit. At every turn, the pagans of Mecca were trying to assassinate, kill, exploit, all kind of stuff. They had a treaty, they're breaking the treaty at every single chance they got. When Allah finally strengthened the Prophet ﷺ with this army, he went into Mecca in a relatively bloodless coup and took over Mecca.
Did the Prophet Muhammad break any of his treaties?
No, he didn't.
So in a time of civil, peaceful society, which South Africa is now, there is no militias, there is no gangs raiding the streets, killing people. Would it be justified to go and kill innocent South African white lily people in the countryside?
If there is injustice, you're in a time of oppression, correct?
Say that again.
If you are in a time of injustice, that's an oppression, correct? You're in a time of oppression, correct?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So if you're in a time of oppression, should you be preparing for more oppression, or should you be preparing to change that oppression, whether militarily or otherwise?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you should take efforts to undo the injustice of the society.
In your situation, in your logic, the only way to do it is diplomatically. That's you.
That's not true. That's not true.
So you can't do it militarily then?
You can do it, but it's the last one.
Okay, so when I say military options should be on the table, what do you say?
I think you're not suggesting it's on the table. I think you're saying it is the table.
I never said that. You asked me a question. I answered the question based upon your question. But what you want me to say is that it is the only solution. That's not what I said.
I'm not saying it is the only solution. I'm not saying it's the only solution. I'm saying it's the solution.
I said, based upon your question, right? I told you quite bluntly, the only people that have a history of genocide in South Africa is the very same lily white genociders that you seek to protect. You're not going to use my words or Islam to protect an oppressor. You're not going to do that.
I'm not trying.
At least not with me.
I'm not trying to. I'm trying to establish
at least not with me. But I said very clearly that a military option should be on the table. Why not? You're being oppressed. Why not? What's the problem?
I'm not saying it shouldn't be on the table. I'm saying it's probably the last option, if not avoided at all costs, in my opinion. Because bloodshed and singing on stage of "Kill the Boer" is something that is self-serving, abhorrent, against Islam,
as opposed to the actual bloodshed inflicted on the very same people who are singing songs.
Correct. They are alive to sing those songs, so they have time to go down a diplomatic route, go down a civil route, not rush towards bloodshed. Because look at the people.
Which brings me to my initial question.
Go ahead.
What work do you have against the white supremacist? Since you have all of this finger wagging against people singing "Kill the Boer," what do you have to say against the apartheiders? What do you have to say against them?
Ask me a question,
I don't have nothing. You're the one who asked me the questions to come out and defend the apartheiders. I'm not doing it.
I'm not,
and you're not going to get me to do it.
I'm just trying to separate you from the pro-black perspective, and
you can't. I'm black, and I'm going to be pro-black.
I wish you would rather be Muslim rather than.
I am Muslim,
well,
and my Islam requires me and necessitates for me to fight against the oppressor. And if the oppressor just happens to be a white supremacist, then I will seek Allah's face in fighting them. You better believe that they are the power. They are the power in the world today.
Yeah, well,
they are the Fir'aun of today. It's not the pro-blacks. It's not the pro-blacks that cause apartheid. It's not the pro-blacks that drop nuclear bombs in Hiroshima. It's not the pro-blacks that are causing Palestine to get razed to the ground. It's not the pro-blacks that brought you genocide in Congo, genocide in Libya, genocide in Iraq, genocides in Afghanistan. It's all the white supremacists. And you mean to tell me that I need to fight the pro-blacks? You're joking. You're joking.
I'm not saying fight the pro-blacks. I'm saying
not to be a pro-black after all the incidents of actual killing, actual genocide, actual anti-black indoctrination through media, through music, through school, all of this, and still you don't want me to be pro-black? You're tripping.
Never be pro-black. I'm encouraging you to never be pro-black.
No worries. I'm going to continue being pro-black.
I wish better for you, brother. I can see it even in this example that you've given to justify singing on stage to say "Kill the Boer." Kill the Boer, justifying the idea of the hypothetical, because even you gave a hypothetical, I entertained it. Octavio gave the hypothetical, you entertained it, but I feel your hypothetical is not aligned to Islam. Allah will, I feel like would disagree with you on this issue, but I can't speak for him.
It's not in line to Islam in terms of singing, in terms of music. I don't agree with that. You're right. You're right. But what you weren't asking me in terms of that.
No, I'm asking
you were asking me in terms of genocide, correct?
Yes, to kill the Boer is a genocide.
Kill the Boer is not a genocide. Kill the Boer is a song. How many lily white apartheiders died from the singing of Kill the Boer? Just show me one.
I'm quite good at research.
Yeah. I know you don't have any.
The question. Sorry guys. Can I just ask a question? The question is, can you give me some like Islamic verses that you think, oh, this aligns with my pro-black stance on killing the white Boers in South Africa?
What? Wait, hold on. Wait, time out. Wait. What did you just say?
No, because remember.
Wait,
hold on.
A left turn somewhere, man. Like what?
Hold on. Just talking is basically saying he doesn't believe that your view on the Boers is Islamic, and you're saying it is Islamic.
Yeah, because fighting the oppressor.
Hold on, guys. Hold on.
Fighting the oppressor is from Islam.
Okay.
Fighting the oppressor is from Islam.
No, exactly.
Who is the oppressor in the world today?
No, absolutely. So what I'm asking,
that's where I'm coming from.
Remember,
you guys turned into something completely different.
No, hold on. The question.
About me killing the Boer.
Hold on. No. Yeah, Justice, just let me get it. Let me get this off. Okay. Basically, because we've asked you several times, and I want to make sure that we get a clear answer on this, because I don't want us to go around in circles for no reason. Okay. Yes, you're calling the situation that's going on right now in South Africa with the Boers owning all those lands as oppression, right?
Of course it is.
Yeah, it is oppression. So so under oppression, and you think it is oppression, you say it is oppression. So
is it oppression?
Octavio? Hold on a second. Doesn't it? No. Doesn't it?
It's not oppression.
No. Doesn't it justify?
Wow. Okay.
Hold on a second. Doesn't it justify? Then wouldn't black people in South Africa be justified to go out there and literally slaughter them? Because guess what? It is, you regard it as oppression. So what I'm asking is there? How did you arrive at this? If that's your position. How did you arrive at this decision, this conclusion Islamically, like with verses? And what is it that you can point us to verse-wise, hadith, Quran, that says, okay, it's okay under oppression for black South Africans to go out there and slaughter them? If they were to do that, you know what? They're fighting against oppression, so they are justified.
Fighting oppression in general is Islamic. Now you're turning something that I actually did not say. Right? I said, and I continue to say, and I will always say that Allah orders us to fight oppression. I gave the hadith already. Change the evil with your hands, change the evil with your tongue, or hate it in your heart. And the least of faith is to hate it in your heart. Right? And on top of that, I do say, and I will continue to say, if for some reason, right, that the black South Africans decided that they will uprise and basically fight the Boer or kill the Boer, like in the song, then what's the problem? I don't have any issue with that. What is the actual issue?
Yeah, so I'm not misrepresenting you.
If the white Boer wants peace, then they should act like they want peace. Correct?
Okay, so I'm not misrepresenting you when I say you would be okay if, let's say, that was to happen. They were to.
I wouldn't have an issue. What's the problem? It's just like Palestinians.
Exactly. That's what I'm asking, because I don't want
Palestinians today were to get armaments. And
I don't want you to think as if I'm misrepresenting in any way, shape, or form. If that's what you're saying, then and you're saying this is Islamic. What I was just asking is, okay, all right, is there an Islamic
fighting oppression in general is Islamic. Fighting oppression. So, I'm not saying that those South Africans are somehow going to get rewarded by Allah if they started killing Boers. They're not Muslim.
Yeah.
Right. We hope that they become Muslim for sure.
If they were Muslim and they were fighting
that's a different. And that's
and they killed those. And they killed those Boers.
If they were Muslim, then it becomes obligatory
for them to kill them. Right.
Not necessarily kill them, but to resist for sure. Right. And to resist it in an intelligent manner.
Okay, right? In an intelligent manner. But if it came to killing them, would that be Islamic?
Yeah, if they have the means and ability to do it, of course. Yeah, if they have the ability. Not like what happened.
Do you agree with this?
Not like what happened with Hamas. Like not like that type of just kind of like haphazard.
Okay. I think you. In all fairness to you, brother, I don't think, because Octavio is very precise with his question, and if it seems like that he's trying to guide you towards the idea that genocide is somehow permissible in Islam, which is what he's doing, you've fallen right into that trap.
It's not a trap for me. It's not a trap for me.
It is.
If you get the idea that I'm pro genocide, I'm not.
You've argued for genocide.
I will say it again. I will say it again. Violent resistance is not just something that is honorable, right? But rather, in Islam, if you have the ability to do so, it becomes almost like obligatory. Violent.
The only justification you gave is that from 1994 to 2025, the Black South Africans have not become wealthier. Therefore, it is somehow justified to take an armed resistance against the
why have they become war society? Can you explain to me? Can you explain? Is it because
that is genocide?
These black South Africans are just less intelligent than their white colonizing counterparts? Go ahead.
That is misrepresenting Islam. You're calling for genocide. You're justifying. You're not calling for it. Sorry. You're justifying it and using Islamic interpretations to go to justify it. Octavio is very precise with his questions because he most likely, and hopefully I'm not misrepresenting you, Octavio. He's mostly going to clip this interview.
Yeah, no problem.
And he's going to write, Muslim says you can kill. Like this. I know Octavio. I've danced this dance before.
I'll tell you why. Because Hassan, there's a Muslim here who doesn't agree with another Muslim about another Muslim's interpretation. So I wouldn't do that. So that's not fair on me. But what I'm asking, because what I'm hearing sounds like genocide. So that's why I'm asking over and over again, so that
what is it that I haven't answered exactly?
Exactly, because I think, and hold on, and I want Hassan's opinion on this. Hassan, how is it?
I want to know what it is I haven't answered.
Yeah, because everything that you're saying right now, this is what it sounds to me, that Islamically, it is okay under oppression, and you've identified that there is oppression going on with the Boers owning the amount of land that they
You're the one who said there wasn't, by the way. On record.
Exactly. I'm the one that said there wasn't. You said there was. So you said under that type of oppression, any type of oppression, it is Islamic for Muslim to take up arms, at the last resort use violence,
violent resistance
to the point where they actually kill the Boers, right? So I'm saying okay, this is what it sounded to me. That sounds like genocide to me. Now Hassan is saying to me, no, if he is not, this is not genocide, and so on and so forth.
Whoa. I said it is genocide.
It is genocide, right? So it is genocide.
White Boers, it is genocide. Well, he's killed the boys is a call for genocide. What the hell? That's all I've been saying.
Okay, so in that case, I'm not misrepresenting anyone. If that is Fiash's position, that is Fiash's position.
No problem. Just talking. Do you know who Julius Malema is?
I don't know who Julius Malema is. Yeah.
You see, you don't know what you're just talking. Just doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just talking, right? He wants to say to kill the Boer is a call to genocide, right? That song that's been around since the 80s, mind you. It's not a new song. Okay. It is an anti-apartheid song that appeared in the 80s, mind you. He doesn't know who Julius Malema, which tells me for sure 100% he didn't research it at all. He probably saw it on his right wing Twitter feed somewhere, right? Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Just talking. Is that where you found it?
I think randomly on YouTube. Probably, yeah. I don't know. I've got
a lot on YouTube. You got it on your Twitter, didn't you?
Most likely, yeah. I've got a lot of white wingers.
You see, you can't tell me none, okay? Because I'm not just talking. I actually know what I'm talking about, right? Julius Malema, he is the leader of the ECC, right? The EFF rather, Economic Freedom Fighters, right? And that's a political party there in South Africa, right? He had a rally, right, where he sang that song. Okay, they took him to court. The Supreme Court of South Africa, the same place that you said, right? You saying that this is a what you gonna call it? A genocide song. That's what you said. Now I didn't say it. Okay. Yeah, they ruled, not only did they rule in his favor, but they added that this is into the ruling that this is an anti-apartheid song. You are out here repeating the talking points of the actual enemy of Allah on earth, the white supremacists, while talking about, oh, I'm representing Islam. Yes, you are just talking. Yes, you are just talking for sure. Right? The actual white supremacists are repeating this talking point that this is this anti-apartheid song, which the Supreme Court of South Africa actually ruled in the Supreme Court that is not a genocide song. It is an anti-apartheid song, right? You're saying that's a genocide song. Based on what? Based on what? Your Twitter feed. That's what you're basing it on. I'm basing it on an actual historic fact. You're basing it on your Twitter feed. Go ahead.
Is this true? Is this true, Hassan?
Is it true, Hassan? Is it true? Go ahead. Tell him, Octavio. Tell him. Is it true?
Just talking. Is this true?
You're joking. Relax, Octavio. So, is it true that I found it on my Twitter feed? I don't remember. Do I follow? Do I follow?
Stuttering again.
Well, this is the way I speak. There's nothing wrong the way I speak. I've been kind to you and respectful to you.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm playing a little bit. I'm gassing you up a bit, you know. But
fair.
But at the same time, right? Those folks who are standing up for the enemies of Allah in our era, the actual enemies of Allah, making talking points for the actual enemies of Allah in our era, right? And then let's say that someone like this died today, right? They get taken to Allah. You don't think Allah's going to ask him about that? Why are you out here defending the poors? Like, are you kidding me right now? Allah's not going to ask you about that?
I'll answer that question very directly. I'll answer that question. Let me respond to your three previous points. I'll answer that question of why I think Kill the Boer is an oppressive call to genocide, and that it is abhorrent, and the ICCJ are wrong for their decision and cowardly. Having said that, so
sure, just talking. Sure, go ahead,
please. You made a few points. The first point: did I find it on my right-wing Twitter feed? Possibly. Do I follow a lot of far right-wing Twitter? Yes, it's quite addictive. Unfortunately, that's the negative part of Twitter. You just gravitate towards the most negative things. But I do follow a lot. I follow Charlie Kirk. I follow all the right-wingers you can think of, and the far right. I think I even follow Nick Fuentes as well. I follow all the far right people you can think of. Makes my Twitter a bit more interesting. It's addictive, but you got to add a bit of spice in there. Kill the Boer is it's anti-Islamic. My Muslim beliefs rebuff the idea that kill the Boer is a appropriate thing to say post the apartheid, because I remember maybe at the time when it was written, it was maybe a war song of some sort, and maybe there's some justification in terms of conflict, that they're enemies of one another and one is singing kill the other, and okay, fair enough. But in today's post-apartheid society, where there is a civil society and there is no mass violence as there was during apartheid, to sing that song is evil. Now,
but listening to Nick Fuentes isn't.
Yeah, I listen to Nick Fuentes.
Listening to Nick Fuentes isn't, but singing "Kill the Boer" is. Which is more harmful?
Let me finalize my other point. The ICCJ is wrong for saying it's not a what you call it? It's not a apartheid song. Sure. My evidence for that, or my argument for that, is there are many courts in the world and many governments in the world at the moment who do not call the persecution of the Palestinian people. Sorry, not the Palestinian people, because Palestine doesn't exist. The persecution of the people of Gaza, not a war crime, not I guess it's a genocide, not evil because it is evil, and have not cut ties with the Israeli government economically or socially or in any other way. They're wrong as well. Just because a court says something doesn't necessarily mean it's justice. There are some political motivations.
You have not given up. You talked like a long time about this proof that you were going to give me that this is a genocide. That's my best without providing a single shred, sliver, dot, iota of evidence. All anecdotal speech and what you think. When I gave you the actual evidence, the only thing that you reduced your answer to was dismissing the actual evidence. The courts can be wrong, and the courts can be wrong, and the courts. You see, you want your cake and eat it too.
Yeah,
proof that's a genocide song. That is not proof.
I haven't answered
Nick Fuentes.
Before you get onto that,
go ahead.
Your last question was, what would you say on the day of resurrection when you go to
that's what I'm really worried about. I'm out here actually in the belly of the beast, fighting the actual oppressors with my tongue, making jihad with my tongue, because that's all I can do.
Okay,
so I'm actually fighting the actual oppressive group who have actual long history and long, robust, proud resume of oppression, and all you can come up with is kill the boys of genocide.
Fiashes, if you could do more than just fight them.
Octavio, please let me answer the question. You've got a good question, I'm sure, but
that was actually a great question.
This guy, he loves praising himself. Oh my God.
Go ahead.
So
a few more brothers, and then I gotta go. Inshallah, I gotta pray and stuff. Right?
I will say to Allah, I had the image in my mind of an innocent man, woman, or child who happened to have blonde hair, blue eyes, live in a country that maybe their ancestors acquired their wealth through apartheid. Maybe they're somewhat complicit of what their ancestors did, and maybe they were wrong in reaping the rewards of what their ancestors did and acquire that land. But I could not, in my heart, justify the murder of those people.
And at the same time, that same heart that couldn't justify the murder of those people, that same heart couldn't bring any words in defense of the ones that those people that he's protecting are oppressing. You couldn't do that. Not a single word, not a sentence, not nothing. The only thing that you could do is protect the the hypothetical and alleged innocent benefactors of apartheid. Allegedly. That's all you could do. That's what you're going to go to Allah with? MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Mabruk. You read and you learned from the Quran very well. Go ahead, Octavio.
Octavio?
Yeah. And we're going to end it soon. But you said you are now fighting. You're on the belly of the beast and you are now fighting with your tongue. Are you implying, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I already had my debate with Brother Figgy, so it was interesting to watch you guys go back and forth, and I didn't want to, interfere too much. But are you implying that you would do more if you could, if you had the resources to, in order to fight the oppressor?
You damn right I would. Are you kidding me? There's big reward in doing what I'm doing right now, because the vast majority of the people, right, are basically, under the spell of their social media. So the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned about these times. He talked about the Ruwaybada, these vile, deficient men who are in positions of power they shouldn't be, and they mislead themselves and they mislead the people. He talked about the rise of hatred that was spread. He talked about al-harj. Al-harj is upheavals. He talked about all this stuff. We used to think about what it was like 15, 20 years ago, and now we know what it is, right? So me just talking about it right now and receiving all the heat I'm getting reward for that already, right? If there was an opportunity to end the life of a devil, you damn right I would.
And would you kidding me? And you would say that's Islamic.
Of course it is. What you call it? whatchamacallit, Jesus, peace be upon him, right? See, the thing is, I think some of y'all, you look at these scriptures and you look at these, for example, the ayats of the Quran or the hadith or even verses of the Bible, but you're looking at it dogmatically. You're not looking at it from the perspective of the actual prophets living in those eras, in those times, right? You're looking at it like very dogmatically, right?
No,
so
no,
yeah, you definitely do, Octavio. Sorry to say like that.
Hold on.
You absolutely do.
You're Catholic. You can't deny it.
For sure, you do, Octavio. Sorry to drop a dime on you like that, but bro,
I forgive you guys. I forgive you. All right.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Pray to Mary?
Oh my! Here we go. But the thing is, what I was gonna say is when I look at the lives of the prophets, and I feel for you guys because we have the entire books, with everything, every detail about what the prophets did and said and so on. So I don't look at it dogmatically when I'm looking at the lives of the prophet. I do put myself in those positions. And hold on, and I'm not trying to trip you up with that question because what I'm asking is, we believe.
Well, I wasn't finished, so I'll let you finish. I'll get to
that. We believe in just war. If we are being oppressed to the level where our loved ones are in danger, then and they trying to enslave us and so on and so forth, we believe in that type of we believe it is just to defend ourselves. So we believe in just war. So my intention wasn't to trip you up necessarily, but that depends, and that ruling it belongs to the Pope only. It doesn't belong to us.
Oh no, you in big trouble then.
No, it's true.
I just finished saying that you look at it dogmatically. You said no, just to bring back dogma. Like, okay, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, that's how we look at it. But and how would you? And this is what I really wanted to ask is, and whose decision would that be to when it came to let's say you having the resources and being able to do more, like kill the devil, as you put it. Whose decision would that be? Would you need some kind of Islamic authority to tell you can do this?
Of course. That can only be done.
So you wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't do even if you had the resources. You couldn't do it just because you felt like doing it.
That's correct. The only time it becomes justified is if it's defensive, right? So if it's defensive, then death is preferable to slavery, right? So, but other than that, like if you're doing it, for
and you would say what's happening in South Africa, that would be, you would consider that as to be defensive.
It's not necessarily defensive right now because it's there's some stability there, but like I said, I do not take the right away from the South African people to violently revolt. Why would I do something like that? The wealth of the white Boer, was it achieved peacefully?
So
was it achieved through diplomacy? Was it achieved through honoring treaties and things of this nature?
So the Fiachas, you wouldn't condemn them either. If they
why would I do something silly like that?
Okay. What if they were Muslims? What if they were Muslims and they did that, okay, without an Islamic authority telling them to do so? Would you condemn them for reacting like that?
Yeah, of course, because there's hadith about that specifically. But that very same scenario that you just described there. There's hadith about that.
So only if an Islamic authority gave you the go ahead, then you would go out and do that, right?
Yeah, of course.
That's the only way. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. So that's kind of dogmatic as well, isn't it? Yeah.
The features. Isn't there? Are you still there? Or?
Yeah, I'm here.
Isn't there a hadith that says that you will have leaders that have hearts of devils that will beat your back?
This is Sahih Muslim, that hadith.
Yeah. So the idea that the Boer is being robbed of their wealth and their opportunity gives them justification to go down a violent revolt. Isn't that going against Islam?
No, because they're not Muslim. They weren't Muslim to begin with.
So why are we giving them moral justification for their actions if they're not Muslims?
Who's justifying their actions? You're the one who's justifying, not me. Since I started talking, I started speaking against their oppression. So you're the one who's defending them. You're the one who openly and recorded said that singing the song "Kill the Boer" is a genocide song, even though I brought actual proof, like real proof, not innuendo, not guesswork, not a Twitter feed, right? Yeah. That it's not a genocide song, even ruled by the South African Supreme Court as not a genocide song, and you still insisted that it was a genocide song based upon your feelings. And I'm you know what? Yeah, let me leave the actual evidence and just follow your feelings, because that makes more sense to me.
Well, you present a contradictory point. You're saying it's an oppressive state, but then you're appealing to the state as an authority.
The only genocide music that I know of that is actual genocide music is the appropriated by Jewish music moguls, gangster rap, and what's that other drill rap? That I can say is genocide music. I don't know any other music that's genocide music, especially not that song. Not a single Boer was killed from that song, not one. But you call it a genocide song.
It's a call to genocide.
I'm not allowed to call it genocide. Okay, the imaginary genocide that we are witnessing right now, as opposed to the actual genocide that is happening all over Africa and the Congo, and black people actually being kidnapped, sold into slavery, sex slavery in Libya. Yeah, see what's going on in Sudan. But the only thing worth mentioning in Brother Octavio's channel in terms of genocide is the "Kill the Boer" song.
Yes, and I'm doing it to oppose your pro-black.
Let's go by your feelings. No problem. We'll go by.
No, it's to oppose your pro-black Muslim perspective.
Well, how's that going for you? How's that working out for you? You think you're doing pretty good there, buddy?
I think so.
How do you think you fared?
So you can be Muslim and pro-black. Wow.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And how did you think you did presenting your argument today? Just talking. I'm just asking. I think you did a pretty good job. Maybe you can ask Nick Fuentes how you did.
I think it's a facetious question, maybe.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. So the point I'm making is, I think the pro-black perspective has blinded you to justice, and I think it's maybe
word.
I think it diminishes your potential as a Muslim to a certain
word.
Not you specifically, because I don't want to make that personal judgment of you, but based on your argument.
You meant me specifically. It's fine.
I don't want to judge you. I don't want to judge you personally.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No
He's talking about you, yes.
I'm not talking about you personally. I'm just using your arguments because I'm sure other people have similar arguments to yourself.
Where are they? Who are they?
I can't think of any.
Exactly. Because you listen to far right, alt right Twitter feeds.
But does that make me far right if I listen to the far right?
It does.
You speak with pure far right. How do you think I knew?
Knew what?
How do you? What am I, a mind reader? Am I talking to the jinn right now? I'm just listening to the way you speak. That's it.
So that's I'm far right.
Yeah, of course you are. Are you kidding me?
Simply because I said the call, death to the Boer, whatever it was, kill the Boer song was a call to genocide. You
need to go to my channel and watch some of my videos. I'm not somebody that goes and invest in my own indoctrination on social media. Anybody who knows me knows that about me.
But you're definitely incorrect about
me. And that's why I can point out very quickly.
Yeah.
Just by listening, especially to the young people coming up today.
Yeah.
What they listen to just by the way they talk, because you invest in your own indoctrination, so you can be bold enough to say that "Kill the Boer" is a genocide song.
It is.
While at the same time, up until right now, you had nothing to say against the actual genociders. The actual people of guilty of actual genocide. Not a
Bring them
single
up.
word.
Bring them
Not
up.
one.
Bring them up. I've told you my motivation of why I say the call.
Yeah. And I told you my motivation, and I that's why I asked you facetiously how you think you did.
The point is, brother, your pro-black perspective is blinding you to the point where you're calling me far right. And just because
how was that blind? How was that blind? How did I know you listened to Nick? You're the one who volunteered the rest of the information. How you think I knew? That's not blind. That is called a hypothesis, an educated guess. And guess what? My educated guess was educatedly right.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Necessarily right. Necessarily it was right.
No. What you're looking
it's okay. You are. It is what it is. You is what you is. It's all
you're looking
just
for you have confirmation, brother. You have confirmation bias.
What? Wait, time out.
Yeah.
Hold on. Wait a minute. The one who was bringing you Supreme Court rulings has confirmation bias, and the one who brought you his Twitter feed from Nick Fuentes has what now? Has what is the one who has that? The one who's listening to Twitter?
You're the one confirmation bias.
Okay, brother. Okay, last words. Go ahead.
I enjoyed it, guys. I love it. Sorry, Hassan, you wanted to finish something?
Yeah. So the point I was making before the brother Fiyash closed down the show. The point I wanted to say is that your pro-black perspective is blinding you to justice. Maybe even I think it's blinding you to justice because I don't want to make an absolute statement. It's unfair. I think it's blinding you to justice. I think it's making you have making you making you even make arguments that distort the interpretation of the Quran to suit your pro-black perspective. It may be that you have a pro-black perspective and you incorporate. You're still a Muslim. I'm not questioning your Islam, but it's just that you incorporate that pro-black perspective, even to the point where you say the oppressors are the white supremacists globally, and of course there are oppressors everywhere, but their racial identity isn't an indicator of how.
Wow. That is very far. Wow. Oh, anyways, go ahead.
All right. Yeah.
That is so far, man. Wow, that is crazy.
Far, right,
Did I misrepresent you?
No. I'm just saying that your take. Whew, that was crazy. That was absolutely crazy. But anyways,
sometimes Allah sends us people that shows clearly how straight we may be, and I think you are.
Yeah, and yes, you were displaying it on record right now, on recorded live. Damn, that is nuts. If Pharaoh was alive today, you'd be like, well, Pharaoh, I know he's a bad guy, but look, man, he's just trying to keep his identity as being the God on the earth. Mm-hmm. That's you. That's you, and the rest of the far right, what you would call a populist. This is crazy, man. Muslims should not speak like that at all. That is nuts. Nuts. You should take a firm stance against the actual oppressors and not this wishy-washy defense of them. That's crazy. That is really crazy.
I do, but I don't try to focus on race that much. It may be a tool.
How can you not? You saying that you don't focus on race that much, but at the same time saying that "Kill the Boer" is an apartheid song? That's proof that you focus on race a lot. But you focus on making sure you make excuses for the oppressor, and you just did. And you did it in an unabashed, and you did it in a very unabashed, obvious, shameless way. That was crazy, bro. That was really crazy. Anyways, go ahead.
I'll clarify. So just to clarify my point with those points that you made, I do not focus on race. I do focus on racists. The Kill the Boer song is a racist song. There are racist organizations like Nick Fuentes. He is a racist. Charlie Kirk, as far as I'm 99% sure he's racist. In my opinion, he is a racist, but he dances around the topic. Just because I follow far right people on Twitter doesn't mean I'm one of them. Just because I oppose your perspective it means I'm far right. Again, I think you're blinded by race. I think it's overwhelmed your ability to fully interpret the scriptures and the verses, as you said, in the most appropriate and balanced way, to the point where you can hear a song being sung by a black person, but because you relate to them ethnically, you will forgive their call for genocide. Because if it was the other way around, I think you would be saying something different. I think you were saying the call to genocide, kill the African or kill whatever, kill the black man or whatever. Immediately you would pick up on the fact that it is racist. These justifications of historical context and so on and so forth are ways to maybe to further blind yourself and justify whatever unresolved issues that you may have when it comes to race, to be honest with you. I hope you overcome this. I wish you the best.
Me too.
I think the pro-black perspective has nothing to do with Islam. I think Islam is purely about justice, and he used the right tool at the right time. And it is always fair and is always just, and it always produces the best results. Many have gone astray, whether it be Arab nationalists, whether it be pro-black, whether it be pro-white Muslims. I've even seen that on Twitter now, which is another disease that's coming across the people. We just need to focus on a more balanced approach and not necessarily reinterpret how the prophets would do things to suit our current narrative. And maybe you've given me a few jabs, so I'll give you one little jab here. Although I don't want, I don't think it's
haymakers then. They're going there.
You better take your best shot while you can.
No.
Go ahead.
All right.
You better get it in. Getting is good. So go ahead. Take your shot there.
I respect you for listening. Just a slight little jab. I hope that you can get away from this movie playing in your head that maybe you're Django Unchained or whatever it is, or Django, and going out to fight the white oppressor and to be the black Mehdi or whatever it is that maybe is playing in the movie that's playing in your head. I hope you become better in your interpretation of Islam. Don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but just expressing the best way I can advise you, I think.
Yeah, sure.
If that was your best shot, Hassan, you're gonna have to take some boxing lessons, man. But anyway, go ahead. Can I go out? Can I go, Octavio, or you want to go, or you want me to go, or like how you want to do this?
You go, right? Octavio. You go, Cassius. You go, bro.
Right. So at any rate, we just heard talking, right? Give this long, I hope you don't be pro-black, and pro-black is nothing Islam and blah blah blah, and meanwhile making excuses for the actual oppressor, right? And then on top of that, right, saying that Islam has nothing to do with pro-black. People like you are the reason why we are pro-black, especially people like you, right? Wow. Because all you do is make excuses for the actual oppressor. That's all you do. You are like the Sadducees and the Pharisees at the time of Jesus, peace be upon him. You're the same type of person, right? You have that pro-imperial, pro-colonial mindset, and then you turn around and say that the prophets wouldn't have been pro-black. Let me ask you something, okay? If the Prophet Muhammad was alive today, would he be riding with Nick Fuentes, or would he be riding with the poor, oppressed people all over the earth? Which one is he going to ride with?
Good question.
If Jesus, peace be upon him, was alive today, would he be riding with the white apartheid South African ruling class, or would be right there in the slums with the poor black people there in South Africa? Which one would he be riding with? You don't know the prophets. That's the problem. This is what you know. You know far right talking points, and you try to Islamify him, and you can't. But meanwhile, I legit have the Quran on my side. I legit have the Hadith on my side. I legit have examples of the actual prophets on my side. I can bring, and which I have. I brought example time and time, actual examples, not some general wishy-washy statement. Actual, real examples of the prophets fighting oppression. Jesus, peace be upon him, he was like the Malcolm X of his time. He had a ruling colonial power at the time in the Romans, and on top of that, he had the high Jewish elites who were the go-betweens between the Romans and the poor Jews at his time. He was dealing with a lot. You think he'd be out there talking about, we got to make excuses for these high Jewish elites. The Jewish elites hated Jesus because he stood up for the poor. The high class Jews hated Jesus because he stood up for the oppressed. This is the Isa bin Maryam that we know. This is the Prophet Muhammad something that we know. I don't know which prophet you talking about saying that. Oh, we got to make excuse for the oppressor and their offspring. You're tripping. You're tripping. God himself destroyed Sodom. God himself destroyed Gomorrah. He didn't just destroy the soldiers in Sodom and the ruling class in Gomorrah. No, when he destroyed them completely. He killed the women. He killed the children. He killed the dogs. He killed all of Sodom and Gomorrah. Are you going to say God is a genocider? Is that what you're going to say? I'm not even saying that. I'm saying that the South Africans, oppressed South Africans and oppressed people everywhere, have the right to violently resist. And you are trying to label me or somehow use this statement to say that I'm pro-genocide. And you have actual examples of genocide. And on top of that, you're making excuses about a song being genocide, when there's actual real genocide music poisoning the minds of black youth all over the West, and you don't have nothing to say about that. You're tripping. I'm not the one who's tripping. I know what I'm talking about, right? And you can never, ever, ever in your life Islamify oppression. No matter how much you try, no matter how much you love your oppressor, no matter how much you love Zaddy and your far right devils, you can never Islamify them. You can't purify poop. I'm sorry. The only thing poop is good for is become fertilizer. You throw it in the ground. That's it. Anyway, sorry, Octavio. Go. I know I messed up.
Right. Wow.
Go ahead. You're tripping, man. You're tripping. Right? If Jesus came today, he wouldn't go to the oppressor. He wouldn't go to Donald Trump. He wouldn't go to the Proud Boys. He would go to the oppressed. He would go to the downtrodden. He would go to the poor, the destitute. He would go to the so-called black people of all around the world who are oppressed. That's who he would go to. You're tripping. You don't know what you're talking about. I know what I'm talking about. So no matter how much you say, oh, this pro-black thing is messing up my mind. No, my brother. I don't sit on Twitter on far right feeds. I don't sit there watching, trying to get talking points from Django. I read the Quran. I read the Sunnah. I see how the Prophet stood brave and firm against the oppressor, and how Allah mentions time and time again, he hates the oppressor. He hates the oppressed. Not he loves them, he hates them, while you out here making excuses for them and calling it Islamic. You must be out your mind. Anyways, go ahead, Octavio.
Guys, listen, I enjoyed this exchange, this back and forth between two Muslims. It was really interesting. I've just been listening to you guys. It's interesting to see you guys going at it, even though it wasn't meant to be a debate or anything, but it developed into that. And
sorry, say Malish. I know.
It's fine, bro. It's fine.
It's my fault. Yeah.
No. It's always going to be what it is. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, we heard it here. Everyone heard it here. Hassan is stripping. I'm joking. Hassan. I'm joking. But I love it.
How could I be tripping when I had a nice stretch halfway through the debate?
And I enjoyed it, guys. Listen, man, it's always gonna be what it's gonna be, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, guys. If yes, thanks for passing through, man. Anytime you see a live that interests you and you want to pass through and share your comments, you're more than welcome. And I wasn't expecting this, and I love the outcome. I love the outcome. But that this is gonna be it. Thanks everyone for interacting with the Solution Podcast today. Everyone in the comments section.
One more thing, Octavio, before we go. I just want your permission if I can clip this, inshallah.
Yes, absolutely, 100%, brother. Feel free. And yes, shout out to Aaron McKay and everyone in the comments section, Aspra, Negus, and all of that. But anyways, guys, take care. This is Solution Podcast. Peace.
Can I say something as well?
Yes.
So I think the correct pronunciation is the features. Not
the
fiascos.
features. Yes, that's correct. Yeah,
Yeah,
the features.
The features, right? Okay.
Yeah. I just want to give you what I heard one of my co-hosts say once, or co-guests, a virtual handshake. I appreciate the back and forth between you and I. You spoke honestly, and you did listen to my points, and you do know how to take a joke, which I appreciate.
Thank you so much. Sometimes I get a little carried. I apologize, man, but that's just my
no apology needed, because you spoke sincerely. I hope you weren't offended by anything that I said.
No, I hope you weren't offended by anything I said.
I was offended by a lot of what you two said, but anyway.
Nobody cares.
That's the spirit.
But much respect to Features for actually speaking sincerely, I guess. Yeah, that's the correct.
My pleasure.
All right, guys. Anyways, guys, take care. We'll see you on the next live. Take care, guys. Peace.
Peace.